He died in Busan, run over by a car that night while driving his wife home. Then he woke up in a stranger's body on the floor of a temple where a plaque with numbers shone above him. Power 3, class, observer, skill, analysis. In parentheses, a single word that will decide everything. Slow. Daniel Ray opens his eyes and sees gray granite with a crack running across the ceiling. Someone else's memories lay on top of his own, like a second coat of paint. He realizes two things at once. He's dead, and he's no longer at home. A priest in a white robe stands over him, reading numbers from a floating tablet. Strength 3, Dexterity 4, Endurance 5, Intelligence 6, Mana 0. The priest falls silent. He turns toward the hall. He says these stats are lower than a miller's, and 100 young men in gray shirts cackle along the walls and point fingers. Daniel sits down. His knees are shaking. His muscles are like those of a teenager who's never lifted anything heavier than a book. He looks at his palms, and instead of panic, feels a familiar professional calm. A defective batch. Low tolerances. It's a good thing he showed up at all. Someone takes his hand. Her fingers are warm and strong. Standing next to him is a girl with dark hair and gray eyes that show no pity, only stubbornness. His body remembers. Her name is Hannah Yoon. He's known her for 12 years. She's his wife. Hannah squeezes his hand and says everything will be okay, that she'll work, that he just needs to live. Daniel looks at the sign again and has a thought that will define his entire life in this world. He's an engineer. He was given a device with a very narrow range. But the device works, so it's usable. Newcomers are led from the temple in groups. Guild recruiters with tablets are waiting outside the doors, selecting people like scouts at a fair. Strength 40, class, Storm Knight. 3 guilds bid at once. Strength 25, Shadow Archer. 2 offer a contract. Daniel goes last, and his nameplate hangs over his head like a death sentence. Not a single guild turns their head. He walks past as if he were invisible. Hannah walks beside him. Her stats aren't impressive either, and her class isn't defined at all. They emerge into a city called Calderon, the capital of the kingdom. The streets are paved with stone flecked with mana. Lanterns powered by monster cores hover above the rooftops. Every passerby carries a weapon openly. The world is built on strength, and everyone knows it. Daniel looks up at a lantern. He stares at it for 10 seconds, and the skill activates on its own. Numbers flash in the air. Core class F, residual charge 34%. Luminance decreases by 0.7% per day. Replacement interval 48 days. The numbers fade. And that's when he realizes the most important thing. His skill works not only on people and monsters, it works on anything that has stats. And in this world, everything has stats. At home, a room on the second floor in the artisan's quarter awaits him. 1 bed, 1 table, 1 chair. The window faces the wall of the neighboring house. Hannah sits down and stares silently at the wall. Daniel takes a candle stub, a piece of rough paper, and a piece of coal from the stove, and he writes. The world of Aaron. The system. Analysis skill. Slow. Accuracy unknown. Range unknown. Limitations unknown. Needs testing. Hannah asks what he's doing. He answers without turning around. I'm drafting the technical specifications. By dawn, he has 42 questions for the system and 0 answers. But there's a method. He'll take measurements. Hannah gets a job as a laborer at the Copper Shield Guild, cleaning weapons after raids, and Daniel asks her for one favor. Bring home whatever they've written off and thrown away. Broken gear. First, she brings a cracked gauntlet with a bent plate. Daniel places it on the table and stares at it intently. 10 seconds. 20. 30. The skill loads slowly, like an old computer. The numbers crawl out one by one. Low carbon steel. Strength 18 out of 100. Wear 89%. A micro crack at the weld point. Cause overheating during forging, 60 degrees above normal. He picks up the cuffs and checks them with his fingers. There's a crack. His fingernail can feel it. The skill didn't lie. Over the course of a week, Khan brings in 11 more items. A shield, a helmet, knives, arrowheads, an empty shell the size of a walnut. Daniel analyzes each one. He takes notes. He compares them. He looks for a pattern. And on the 8th day, he finds the first one. The system rounds off the numbers. When a blacksmith forges a sword and the system displays attack 50, the actual value isn't 50. It's 47.3 or 52.8. The system takes the number and rounds it to the nearest whole number. Everyone sees 50. Daniel sees 47.3. At F rank, this difference is negligible. At A rank boss, it's the difference between life and death. He sits poring over the records, his heart pounding faster. The system isn't perfect. It has margins of error, and those margins can be exploited. He opens a blank page and types the title, Aaron's Margins. In her second week, Hana brings home her first sword, a standard guild blade issued to her team of rookies at the Copper Shield Guild. She sets it by the door and sits down to dinner, rice with vegetables. Daniel had cooked it while she was at work. Hana eats and complains, saying the sword is dull and doesn't work the way it should, that the other rookies have better swords. Maybe she's just clumsy. Daniel silently gets up from the table. He picks up the sword, carries it back to the table, places it on the empty half, and sits down in front of it. He looks at it. 10 seconds. 20. 30. The skill activates slowly. The numbers crawl like a loading bar. Material: medium carbon steel. Hardness: 61 units. Blade length: 78 centimeters. Edge angle: 22 degrees. Type: left-handed. Hana is right-handed. The center of gravity is shifted 4 millimeters toward the hilt from the standard position. Hardening temperature: 40 degrees above standard. System's overall rating: attack 31. Actual value: attack 27.4. Daniel looks up. He tells Hana that the blade was hardened 40 degrees above standard, that it was sharpened for a left-hander, that the center of gravity is shifted by 4 millimeters. It's not her. It's a defect. Hana stops chewing. She looks at him. She asks how he knows that. Daniel taps his temple with his finger. He says his skill isn't as useless as everyone thinks. Then he stands up and starts looking for tools. They don't have a workshop. They have a kitchen. But Daniel has already gathered a few things over the past 2 weeks. A file bought at the market for a copper coin. A whetstone found near the trash pits behind the guild. A small lead weight that he cast himself from a melted sinker. Scales made from a stick and 2 bowls. He works for 4 hours. Hana falls asleep on the bed before it's done. Daniel sharpens the blade, changing the sharpening angle from 22 degrees to 17. This is the angle for a right-hander with Hana's arm length and the way she holds the hilt, which he remembered when she showed him the basic stances 3 days ago. He removes the pommel from the hilt. He takes out the counterweight. He replaces it with his own lead weight, which is 12 grams heavier. The center of gravity shifts forward, exactly those 4 millimeters. He can't change the hardening temperature retroactively, but he can compensate for the brittleness by applying oil in a specific order to specific areas of the blade. 3 layers. Each layer dries for 20 minutes. He waits. Applies the next one. Waits. At 4 in the morning, he finishes. He places the sword on the table. Activates analysis. Attack 31. No. Attack 36.7. The system rounds it up. It shows 37. Plus 18% damage bonus over the standard value. Daniel looks at the sword, then at his hands, stained with oil and metal dust, then at the sleeping Hana, and he thinks this is the best thing he's ever done in his 2 lifetimes. In the morning, Hana takes the sword and heads off to training. She returns 6 hours later. Daniel hears her footsteps on the stairs. They're quick. She bursts into the room. Her eyes are wide open. She says she took down a stone golem with a single blow, that the training golem, which newbies take 15 minutes to defeat, she chopped down with her very first swing, that the instructor came over and asked where she'd gotten that sword, that she didn't know what to say. Daniel pours her some tea. He says he measured it. Hana sits down. She takes the cup with both hands. She's silent. Then she says quietly that she doesn't understand, that everyone says his skill is useless, that the observer class is trash, but in a single night, he made her sword better than a guild blacksmith with 30 years of experience. Daniel shrugs. He says the blacksmith isn't to blame. The blacksmith can't see the numbers after the decimal point. No one does, except him. That day, Daniel starts a second notebook. The first is called Aaron's Tolerances. The second is titled Hana's Gear. On the first page, he writes down all the measurements of her body that he's managed to notice. Height, 168 centimeters. Right arm length from shoulder to fingertips, 71 centimeters. Palm size, 17.4 centimeters. Grip, right. Grip pressure at full compression, 14.2 units. Stance width, 62 centimeters. Torso angle during the swing, 23 degrees. Weight with gear, 59 kilograms. Without gear, 54. Hana peeks over his shoulder. She reads. She blushes. She asks when he managed to memorize all of this. Daniel says he didn't memorize it, he measured it. Every time she moved near him, his skill automatically recorded the data. He simply wrote down what he already knew. Hana is silent. Then she says, it's strange, but that she likes it. That for the first time, someone is looking at her and sees not just a weak girl from the laundry, but a set of parameters he can work with. The next day, Daniel leaves the house alone. He needs supplies. He heads to the market in the craftsman's quarter. They sell everything needed to maintain equipment there. Oils, leather, metal blanks, mana-infused thread, sharpening stones of various grits. Daniel has 40 copper coins in his pocket. That's all Hana was able to set aside from her salary. He walks past every stall, activating analysis on each item, and discovers something that changes his approach to this world's economy. 90% of the goods at the market have hidden defects. Blade oil labeled premium grade is actually 30% diluted. The leather for belts is over-dried and will lose its strength in 2 months. Sharpening stones from the famous quarries of the eastern frontier actually come from a quarry outside the city walls, and their grit is 1.5 times coarser than stated. No one notice. Because the system displays rounded values, a stone with an actual quality of 38.7 and one with a quality of 44.2 are both rated by the system as average quality. But Daniel sees the difference. He walks around the market for 3 hours. Then he finds what he was looking for. A stall in the far corner. An old man with a beard down to his waist is selling files and hammers. The merchandise is dusty. There are no customers. Daniel looks at the files. He activates analysis, and his eyes widen. Quality 72.8, better than any tool he's seen in this market, better than half of the guilds. Daniel asks the price. The old man says 5 copper coins each. That's 3 times cheaper than at the neighboring stalls. Daniel asks why they're so cheap. The old man sighs and says that people don't buy from him because the system rates his goods as ordinary. The files from the workshop across the street get the same rating, even though cost 15 copper coins. People go for the well-known brand. But he's just an old blacksmith whom no one knows. Daniel buys 3 files. All of them are over 72 in quality. He thanks the old man. The old man looks at him in surprise. He asks how Daniel knew. Daniel says he measured them. The old man shakes his head and says that in 40 years, this is the first time anyone has ever measured his work. Daniel returns home. He has 3 files, a whetstone, oil, 22 copper coins left, and a plan. He can't fight. He can't make a living as an adventurer. But there's one thing he can do better than anyone else in this world. He can see the difference between what the system shows and what's actually there. And he can turn that difference into strength for Hana. That evening, Hana returns with news. The instructor from the Copper Shield relayed that her sword had caught someone's attention. A guild blacksmith examined it and said the reforging was masterfully done. He asked who had done it. Hana said her husband. The instructor laughed. Then he looked at Hana's serious face. He stopped laughing. He said that if it's true, her husband should stop by the guild. They have a job for a master finisher. Daniel shakes his head. He says he won't go. If he starts working for the guild, they'll impose conditions on him, control his time, demand standards. But his standards are higher than those of any guild in this world. He'll work on his own, for her. Hana looks at him for a long time. Then she nods. She doesn't argue. She's already beginning to understand that this quiet man with 0 mana and a strength of 3 sees the world differently than everyone else, and that this isn't a weakness. It's something she doesn't yet have a name for. A month in the new world. Daniel counts the days with notches on the wall at the head of his bed. 30 notches, 30 days of measurements. 4 notebooks are filled to the last page with tiny handwriting. First, Aaron's tolerances. Second, Hana's gear. Third, the stats of monsters from the adventurer's tales he overhears at the market. Fourth, his own stats, day by day. Strength is still 3. Dexterity is still 4. Not a single point of growth in a month, because he hasn't killed a single monster. But in the experience column is a number that wasn't there on the first day. 14.7 units, earned bit by bit, for every blade sharpened correctly, for every precisely weighed monster core, for every flawless analysis. 0.1 each, 0.3 each, 0.5 for a particularly complex sample. 14 7/10 in 30 days of work. Any adventurer gets that much for a single wolf killed. Daniel looks at that number every evening and feels no disappointment. He feels excitement. The system rewards him with experience for meaningful actions. That means the system considers his actions meaningful. So there is a path, a slow one, but it exists. This month, he's setting up the basement. The homeowner, an old man named Goron, rents out the basement for storage for an extra 10 copper coins a month. Daniel goes downstairs and sees a stone room 3 by 4 meters with a low ceiling, damp, dark, perfect. He spends a week setting it up. He buys an old hammer at the market. The system rates it as ordinary. Daniel sees a quality rating of 68.3. Not bad. He buys a set of scales, real apothecary scales, with graduations down to 1/10 of a gram. They cost him 30 copper coins, almost all they have. Hana doesn't object when he says he needs a scale. She's already gotten used to his requests sounding strange, but the results speak for themselves. 3 files bought from an old man in the corner of the market, a bar of tin, a bag of coal dust, a jar of lard for lubrication, a rope, nails, a plank for a workbench that he finds in a dump outside the city walls and carries home on his shoulders for 2 kilometers. His strength is 3. The plank weighs more than he can comfortably. He stops every 100 meters. He catches his breath. He walks on. A neighbor leans out of her window and shouts that Hana's husband is hauling trash again. Another neighbor laughs and says that poor Hana has to support her good-for-nothing husband who's playing at being a craftsman. Daniel doesn't react. He used to carry much heavier loads at the factory in Busan, and he's heard worse from the shift foreman. The basement will be ready in 10 days. A workbench, a shelf for tools, a workspace for analysis, well lit by an oil lamp he modified by adding a reflector made of polished tin, a storage area for materials, and a wall on which he draws a table with charcoal, columns, item, specified parameters, actual parameters, deviation, notes. He fills out the table every day. By the end of the month, it contains 67 items: swords, knives, spears, shields, breastplates, monster cores, potions, ropes, boots, gloves, belts. Every item is measured. Every defect is documented. Every deviation from the standard is recorded to the nearest 10th. Daniel is a metrology engineer. He does what he knows how to do. He creates a database. Another important thing happens this month. Hana awakens, completely. In the 3rd week, she comes back from training with a gleam in her eyes. She says that while sparring with another rookie, she felt something inside her click into place, like a lock snapping shut. Her stats have been updated. Class, light blade. Strength, 32. Dexterity, 41. Stamina, 28. Intelligence, 15. Mana, 38. Unique skill, Holy Slash. Daniel looks at her stats. He activates analysis. He stares longer than usual. A minute and a half, and he sees what no one else sees. Behind every round number lies a real value. Strength isn't 32, but 32.6. Dexterity isn't 41, but 41.9. Mana isn't 38, but 38.4. And among all the stats, one stands out: growth potential. The system doesn't display this stat. It hides it, but Daniel sees it. A hidden line at the very bottom of Hana's stats table. Growth potential. 94 out of 100. Daniel slowly lowers the hand he'd been using to take notes. A potential of 94. That means Hana isn't just talented, she's one of the most promising fighters in the kingdom. But no one sees it because the system doesn't display potential in an open row. Everyone sees her current stats. 32 strength, average for a beginner, above average but not outstanding. No one knows that this 32 could become 320, except him. Daniel doesn't tell Hana about her potential, not yet anyway. He doesn't want to burden her with expectations. Instead, he does something else. That same night, he takes apart her training boots. He analyzes the sole. He finds that the sole's stiffness doesn't match Hana's weight when she's in her swordsman stance. The sole is too soft for her way of moving. She loses 7% of her turning speed with every step. 7%. It's imperceptible in the training hall, critical in the dungeon when a monster attacks from the side. He removes the sole. He glues a thin plate of scrap steel, which he picked up near the blacksmith shop at the market, between the layers. He cuts the plate to precisely match the shape of Hana's footprint. Every curve, every pressure point. He knows her foot by heart because analysis has memorized everything. In the morning, Hana puts on her shoes and freezes. She stands motionless for a few seconds. Then she takes a step, another, a turn, a stance, a swing. Her eyes widen. She says her feet feel different, that she can feel the floor, that every step is more precise, that she doesn't understand what he's done, but she wants to run. Daniel says he's measured her gait. Hana laughs. It's the first time she's laughed in a month. She says she has the strangest husband in all of Erine. Daniel doesn't smile. He's thinking about something else, about the notebook containing the parameters of 67 items, about the wall with the chart in the basement, about the potential of 94 out of 100 hidden behind the rounded numbers, about how the system doesn't show people the whole truth, about how he's the only one who sees the difference, and about how, in 2 days, his wife will go to her first real dungeon. An F-rank one, the weakest, slugs and rats. But even in an F-rank dungeon, people die. Every month. Statistics he learned by eavesdropping on conversations at the guild. A 2% mortality rate in F-rank dungeons. 2 out of 100. For an engineer, that's an unacceptable defect rate. Daniel goes down to the basement and gets to work. He has 2 days. His boots are ready. His sword is sharpened. There are 2 things left to do. First, bracers. He takes a pair of old leather bracers that Hana brought from the guild scrap pile. He examines them. Quality, 23 out of 100. Poor. But good enough for F rank if he can polish them up. He hardens the leather by impregnating it with a mixture of wax and lard in a ratio he calculated over 3 days of experimentation. The treatment increases the leather's stiffness by 40% without sacrificing flexibility. The system doesn't recognize this recipe. On Erine, leather is treated with mana. Daniel treats it with chemicals from his past life. The second item, a flask of potion. They don't have the money for healing potions. The cheapest one costs 50 copper coins, their entire monthly budget. But Daniel found 3 bottles with remnants of expired potions in the dump behind the alchemy shop. By the system standards, they're useless. The healing rating is 0. They're expired. But Daniel analyzed them and saw that the actual value isn't 0. It's 3.7. The system rounded it down to 0 because the value is below the display threshold. But 3.7 isn't 0. 3.5 healing points, enough to stop the bleeding from a minor wound. He mixes the 3 expired potions into one. He adds pure water and a pinch of salt to stabilize it. The result is a cloudy liquid in an old flask. The healing value is 8.2. The system will display 8. Daniel writes down the recipe. Expired potions, free. Effectiveness, 8 units after mixing. No alchemist in the kingdom knows this, because no alchemist would ever rummage through the trash. But Daniel is an engineer. For an engineer, there's no such thing as trash. There's just material with unknown properties. 2 days later, Hana heads into an F-rank dungeon. The sword he sharpened, the boots he remade, the gauntlets he infused, the flask of potion on her belt. Daniel stands by the door and watches as she descends the stairs. He can't go with her. His stats won't let him survive, even in an F-rank dungeon. He stands there. He waits. 6 hours. The longest 6 hours of his 2 lives. Hana returns, alive, without a single scratch. She smiles. She says the slugs turned out to be slower than she thought, that her sword cut through them like butter, that her boots held up perfectly, that she didn't even use a potion. Daniel takes her sword. He examines it. 0.3% wear after 6 hours. Perfect. He takes her boots. He examines them. The plate is in place. Not a single misalignment. He takes her gauntlets. Not a single crack in the treated leather. He takes the flask. Full. Good. Hana stands in the doorway and watches him. He checks her gear before asking how she's doing. She isn't offended. She's starting to understand. He checks her gear because the gear is him, his hands, his knights, his way of telling her to stay safe. Every millimeter he's perfected is his unspoken words. 3 months. Life has found its rhythm. Hana leaves at dawn. She returns at sunset. Daniel works in the basement from breakfast until dinner. Between these 2 points lies a world he continues to measure. In 3 months, Hana has gone from being a support worker to a full-fledged Copper Shield adventurer. Her stats are rising faster than any other newcomer to the guild. Strength, 47. Dexterity, 58. Mana, 53. The instructor said he hadn't seen such a pace in 10 years from a fighter who awakened after turning 20. He doesn't know why. Daniel does. Every night he fine-tunes her gear. Every gram counts. Every sharpening angle is calculated for her current strength level. Every seam on the straps is checked. When Hana's strength rating rose from 32 to 40, Daniel rebalanced her sword that very night because her new strength had shifted the swing dynamics by 0.4 degrees. No one else would have noticed. Hana noticed. She said it was as if the sword were growing along with her. Daniel said nothing. The sword isn't growing. Daniel adjusts it every week, but there's no need to say that out loud. At the end of the third month, Daniel does what he'd been putting off for 70 days. He heads into the dungeon, alone. An F-class dungeon on the outskirts of Calderon, the weakest one available. Academy students go there for practical training, in groups of 5 with an instructor. Daniel goes alone. His current stats: Strength 3, Dexterity 4, Stamina 5, Intelligence 7, Mana 0. In 3 months, not a single combat stat has increased. His intelligence rose by 1 point from constant analysis. That's all. The guard at the dungeon entrance looks at his registration card. He looks at Daniel. He looks at the card again. He asks if Daniel is sure. Daniel says he is sure. The guard shrugs and lets him through. Technically, there's no ban. An F-class dungeon is open to all registered players, even those with Strength 3. The first chamber of the dungeon, stone walls covered in glowing moss, a dim green light, mud underfoot. The air smells musty and slightly sour. Daniel stands at the entrance and activates analysis. He scans the entire hall. It takes a minute and a half. He sees every crack in the walls, every stone on the floor, the temperature, the humidity, the direction of the draft. And in the far corner of the hall, movement. A slime. An F-rank monster, the weakest type of creature in Aaron's dungeons. A transparent body the size of a watermelon, moves by hopping. Attack 12, jump speed 2.3 meters per second. Attack frequency once every 4.7 seconds. Detection radius 5 meters. Daniel doesn't approach it. He sits down against the wall and takes out his notebook. He writes down everything he's seen. Then he stands up. He takes 3 steps forward. He stops. He's outside the detection radius. 5.2 meters from the slime. Safe. He watches. The slug jumps. It lands. A pause. It jumps again. Daniel counts. He measures the intervals. In 20 minutes, he sees 23 jumps. The average interval is 4.71 seconds. The maximum is 5.1. The minimum is 4.3. The jump's amplitude is 40 centimeters in height and 60 centimeters forward. The slug doesn't change its trajectory in the air. The jump is linear. Predictable. Area of effect, acid spit. Range, 1.5 meters. Angle of dispersion, 30 degrees. Damage, 8 points on a direct hit. Daniel writes everything down. Then he closes his notebook. He pulls out a weapon. It's not a sword. Daniel doesn't have the money for a sword, nor the strength to wield one. It's a 90-centimeter long iron rod with a sharpened tip. He made it himself from a rebar he found at a construction site. He sharpened it and hardened it in the kitchen stove while Hana was asleep. The system rated it as an improvised weapon with an attack rating of 7. The actual value is 7.8. That's enough. The slug's attack rating is 12. His own defense is 4. A single direct hit from the slug will take away 8 health points. Daniel has 23 health points. 3 hits and he's dead. But the slug won't hit him. Daniel knows its trajectory. He knows its speed. He knows its timing. He spent 3 days studying this monster from descriptions in the guild library. Then he watched it in person for 20 minutes. And now he knows more about the F-class slime than any adventurer in the kingdom of Hansen. Daniel takes a step forward, 4.8 meters. Another step, 4.4. The slime freezes. It senses a presence. It turns. It jumps. Daniel counts in his head. 0, 1/10, 2/10. At the 0.6 second mark, the slug is in the air. The trajectory is known. The landing point is known. Daniel takes half a step to the left. The slug lands 30 centimeters to his right. A 4.7 second pause. Daniel strikes with the rod. A downward strike. Not hard, precise. He aims for the slug's upper body, where, according to his analysis, the density is 15% lower. A weak spot. Every monster has a weak spot. The system doesn't show it. Daniel sees it. The staff penetrates the slime's body by 4 centimeters. The slime twitches. It bounces back. Daniel steps back. Damage dealt. He sees the numbers. The slug's health is down by 3. The slug has 40 health points. 3 out of 40. He needs 13 more precise strikes. If each of the slug's attack cycles takes 4.7 seconds, and Daniel lands 1 strike per cycle, then he needs 13 cycles. 13 multiplied by 4.7. Just over a minute. But that's in an ideal scenario. He isn't factoring in his fatigue. His stamina is 5. After 10 minutes of active movement, he'll start to get winded. After 20, his reaction time will drop. After 30 minutes, he won't be able to dodge. So he needs to finish within 20 minutes. 13 strikes in 20 minutes. 1 strike every minute and a half with breaks to rest. Doable if he doesn't make a mistake. Daniel doesn't make mistakes. He's an engineer. He works with intolerances. The fight lasts 40 minutes, not 20. He overestimated his stamina. By the 12th strike, his legs start to shake. On the 13th, he stumbles and barely dodges a spurt of acid. A drop of acid lands on his sleeve. It burns through the fabric. It stings his skin. -2 health. He retreats to the wall. He breathes. He counts. The slime has 4 health points left. One well-aimed strike. Daniel waits. The slime jumps. Daniel strikes. The rod hits its weak spot. The slime freezes. It spreads into a puddle on the floor. A small, pea-sized core remains in the center of the puddle. A line appears before Daniel's eyes. Experience plus 5.0. Analysis skill. Activation speed increased by 3%. Trophy obtained. F-class slime core. New stat. Strength 3+1. Strength 4. Daniel stands over the puddle. His hands are shaking. His legs won't hold him up. His sleeve is scorched. He tastes blood in his mouth from biting his cheek while dodging. He killed the slug. The weakest monster in the world. The most pathetic opponent imaginable. And it took him 40 minutes. Any adventurer could have handled it in 10 seconds. Daniel drops to his knees next to the puddle. He picks up the core with trembling fingers. The pea is warm. It glows faintly. It's worth 2 copper coins on the market. Trash. And Daniel is crying. Kneeling in a filthy dungeon in front of a puddle left by a dead slug, he cries. Not from pain. Not out of fear. Out of joy. Strength +1. His first increase in 3 months. The first proof that his path exists. That he can become stronger. Slowly. Bit by bit. Like everything he does. But he can. He wipes his face with his sleeve. A dirty, scorched sleeve. He stands up. Picks up the rod. Puts the core in his pocket. And heads for the exit. The guard at the entrance sees his condition. The torn sleeve. The dirt on his knees. His red eyes. He asks if everything is all right. Daniel nods. He says he killed the slug. The guard is silent. Then he says, "Congratulations," without irony. The guard has seen many adventurers and has learned not to laugh at those who return alive. Daniel goes home. That evening, Hana returns and finds him in the basement. He's sitting at the table, recording the details of the fight. Every interval, every dodge, every strike. She sees his scorched sleeve. She sees a scratch on his arm. Her face pales. She asks what happened. Daniel says he went into the dungeon. Hana is silent. Then she says he could have died. Daniel says he couldn't have, that he calculated everything in advance, that the only thing he didn't account for was his own endurance, and next time he'll adjust the plan. Hana sits down on a basement step. She wraps her arms around her knees. She is silent for a long time. Then she says she doesn't want him to go into the dungeons. Daniel turns to her. He says he has to, that he can't wait at home forever while she risks her life, that he needs to grow, even if it's just a little at a time. Hana looks at him. Then she nods, not because she agrees, but because she realizes she has no right to forbid him from doing what she does herself every day. But she sets a condition. If he goes into the dungeon, he has to take the gear she'll buy for him. Not a homemade stick, a proper weapon, proper protection. Daniel wants to object. Hana gives him that look that makes him fall silent. She says it's not up for discussion. Daniel nods. The following week, Hana brings him a short sword. Lightweight, cheap, but real. With a guard and a scabbard. Daniel takes it. He examines it. Quality, 44.6. Average, good enough for F-class. He spends 2 nights working on it. He brings it up to 52.3. And he starts going to the dungeon once a week. 1 slime each time. Each fight is faster than the last. The first lasts 40 minutes. The second, 32. The third, 25. The fourth, 19. He isn't getting stronger in the usual sense. His stats are creeping up by tenths. But his knowledge of the monster is growing exponentially. By the 4th battle, he knows everything about F-class slugs. Every jump variation, every spit angle, every weak spot. He doesn't defeat them with brute force. He defeats them with data. The 6th month. Hana no longer works at the Copper Shield. She'd been spotted. The Brightblade class turned out to be rare. So rare that when the Guild Archivist checked the records for the past 50 years, he found only 3 fighters with that class in the entire kingdom, and not a single one of them had shown the rate of growth that Hana had. The invitation arrived in the 4th month. A courier in a silver cloak with a crest on his chest stood at their door and handed her a sealed envelope. Silver Dawn, the strongest team in the Kingdom of Hansen. Captain Evan Holt, rank A, personally invites Hana Yoon to join the team. Hana read the letter and looked at Daniel. He was sitting in the basement, reforging her chest plates. He didn't look up. He told her to go, that this was her chance, that Silver Dawn meant access to B-class dungeons and higher, the best gear, the best mentors, the best raids. Hana asked what would happen to him. Daniel replied that he'd be here, in the basement, making her gear. Nothing would change. Hana left for Silver Dawn. Everything changed. Her first week on the new team, Hana comes home late, tired. Training with an A-ranked team is a whole different level of intensity. She talks about the team members. Captain Evan Holt, 30 years old, a Thunderblade-class swordsman. Handsome, confident. Every word he says sounds like a command, even when he's joking. Strength over 200. Hana doesn't know the exact numbers. The team's tank, Boris Wren, a huge man with the Iron Wall class. Silent, reliable, always stands at the front. Support mage, Theo Vance, a skinny guy with glasses who knows 42 types of barrier spells. And 2 new recruits who arrived at the same time as Hana. Lina Zhao, 22 years old, archer, the team's second marksman, an aristocrat from an impoverished family, sharp-tongued, sarcastic. From day one, she called Hana a hick and immediately apologized in a tone that made the apology sound worse than the insult. Sora Kim, 19 years old, healer, a little girl from the village who made it onto the team through a guild competition. Quiet, enthusiastic, she jots down every word the captain says in her notebook. Hana describes them every evening over dinner. Daniel listens, memorizes, writes them down in a separate notebook. Not names, stats, based on Hana's descriptions. Evan's swing speed, Lina's firing range, Theo's cast time, Sora's healing radius. He hasn't seen these people, but he's already building their profiles. By the 3rd week, Hana brings Lina home. Not on purpose. Lina was walking by and stopped in. That's what she said. In reality, Lina is curious. She noticed that Hana's gear is different from the standard issue and wants to know why. Daniel opens the door. He sees a tall girl with short chestnut-colored hair and a bow on her back. Lina looks down at him. She's a head taller than him. Her status is evident even without a skill, just from the way she carries herself. Strong, fast, dangerous. But Daniel sees something else. His ability activates automatically when he looks at a person for more than 10 seconds. He can't control it. Numbers appear. Strength 61, agility 79, stamina 43. But that's not what catches his attention. He sees an anomaly. Right shoulder. Muscle density is 12% lower than on the left. Chronic inflammation. An old injury. Age of injury, at least 5 years. Current impact on combat performance, a 14% reduction in maximum bow draw. Lina doesn't know he can see this. She walks in. She looks around the room. It's small. It's shabby. She sees a door leading to the basement. She asks what's down there. Hana says it's her husband's workshop. Lina raises an eyebrow. She asks Daniel what he's doing. Daniel says he's measuring things. Lina is silent for a second. Then she laughs. She says it's the most boring activity she's ever heard of. Daniel doesn't argue. He watches as Lina picks up a cup with her right hand. Her hand trembles for a split second as the cup passes shoulder level. She compensates for the tremor with a quick repositioning of her hand. A habit. She's been doing this for so long that the movement looks natural, but Daniel sees it. He always sees it. Lina drinks her tea. She tells stories from training. She jokes around. She complains about the captain. Then she leaves. Daniel goes down to the basement. Hana asks from upstairs what he's doing. Daniel says he has an idea. He works for 3 nights, not on the sword, not on the chest plate, on the shoulder guard, a leather shoulder guard for the right shoulder. The standard design of such a shoulder guard distributes weight evenly. That's fine for a healthy shoulder. For a shoulder with a chronic injury, it's not. The load shouldn't go straight, but in an arc through the trapezius muscle into the back. Daniel isn't a physical therapist, but he's an engineer who has spent 20 years working on load distribution on components. Shoulder, component, bone, load-bearing structure, muscle, material with known characteristics, injury, defect with measurable parameters. He designs a shoulder strap with an offset center of gravity. The center of gravity is shifted 8 millimeters backward and 5 millimeters upward relative to the standard. The inner surface is not flat. He cuts a contoured pad out of leather that applies pressure to 3 points around the shoulder joint, not on the joint itself, around it, redirecting the load. A week later, Lina comes back. Daniel silently places the shoulder pad on the table in front of her. Lina looks at it. She asks what it is. Daniel says it's for her right shoulder. Lina freezes. Her expression changes. The mocking look disappears. She asks how he knows about her shoulder. Daniel says he saw her pick up a cup. Lena is silent for a long time. Then she says that no one knows, that she's been hiding this injury for 5 years, that if the captain finds out, he'll kick her off the team because an archer with an injured shoulder is a liability, that she drinks a painkiller potion every day before practice, that she wakes up at night in pain and can't lie on her right side. Daniel doesn't say a word. He nods toward the shoulder brace. Lena takes it, puts it on, fastens the straps, moves her shoulder, raises her arm, higher, even higher. Her eyes widen. She pulls her arm back as if drawing a bowstring. Full range of motion, no pain. For the first time in 5 years. Lena stands in the middle of their small kitchen with her arm outstretched, not moving. Her lips tremble. She lowers her arm. She takes off the shoulder sling. She places it on the table. She looks at Daniel. Then she says she has to go. She turns and walks away. She picks up the shoulder strap. That same evening, Hana returns and says something strange happened. Lena was silent all day. She didn't joke. She didn't tease. At the evening archery practice, she shot her best score in 6 months. Then, she left without saying goodbye. Daniel says he gave her the shoulder bag. Hana looks at him. Then she smiles. She doesn't ask for details. She knows. 3 days later, Lena comes by again, uninvited, with a bottle of wine. She sits down at the table. She's silent. She pours herself a glass. She pours one for Hana. She doesn't try to pour one for Daniel because he doesn't drink. She drinks. She's silent. Then she starts talking. She explains that it's a childhood injury. She fell off a horse when she was 7. Her father didn't have her treated because he believed that the daughter of an aristocrat didn't need a strong right hand. She needed a good husband. Lena never found a husband. She sold the family home. She bought a bow. She learned to shoot through the pain. She became one of the kingdom's best archers, but never the best, because she fell 14% short of her maximum potential. And every time she looked at the target and saw that the arrow had landed just below the ideal, she knew why. And she hated her shoulder, and her father, and her horse. Daniel listens. He doesn't interrupt. When Lena finishes, he says one thing. He says that 14% is the difference between a score of 86 and a score of 100. That 86 is an excellent result, but 100 is the benchmark. And that now that the load is distributed correctly, she needs to recalibrate her shooting, because for 5 years she'd been compensating for the pain, and that compensation had become part of her technique. Now the pain is gone. Her technique has to change. Lena looks at him, then at Hana, then back at Daniel. She says he's the strangest person she's ever met. Then she finishes her wine. Then she cries, quietly, burying her face in Hana's shoulder. Hana hugs her and looks at Daniel over Lena's head. There's no surprise in her eyes, only quiet pride. Because she knows what Lena is only beginning to understand. Daniel doesn't just do things. He does things for people, and in that is a difference that no skill can measure. The next day, a second shelf appears in Daniel's basement. On the first one sits Hana's equipment notebook. On the second, Lena's equipment, Volume 1. A week later, Sora comes to visit them, a young healer from the village. She's come for Lena, who now spends every third evening with them. Sora sits in the corner of the kitchen and watches in silence. Then she takes out her notebook and begins to write. Daniel asks what she's writing down. Sora says she's writing everything down, that she was taught to record to write down every spell she casts, every result, every mistake. Daniel asks to see it. Sora hands him the notebook. He flips through the pages. 3 months of entries. Dates, spells, amount of mana, result. Neat, detailed, but without analysis. Sora is collecting data, but she doesn't know what to do with it. Daniel sits down with her, an hour. They go over her notes. He shows her a pattern she hadn't noticed. Every healing spell has an effectiveness curve. With the same amount of mana, Sora's morning spells restore 8% more health than her evening ones. Not because the mage gets tired, because mana in the world of Aaron follows a daily cycle. It's denser in the morning, it's thinner in the evening. No one knows this because the system doesn't display mana density. Daniel sees it. Sora looks at him with wide eyes. She says that if this is true, she can plan her mana usage differently, spend less in the morning when natural density helps, and save some for the evening when density drops. Daniel nods. He says that's exactly right, that her class isn't magic, it's engineering. The healing system works according to formulas. Formulas can be optimized. Sora is silent. Then she asks for permission to come by again. Daniel says the door is always open. That night, Hannah lies next to him and says quietly that their apartment is starting to resemble a workshop with extra features. Daniel says that's exactly what it is. Hannah says no, that it's a place where strong people come so that someone will finally look at them and see not their class or their rank, but their crooked grip, their sore shoulder, their suboptimal mana consumption. That he sees in them what no one else does. Daniel is silent. Then he says he's just taking measurements. Hannah says he's lying, that for him, measuring means loving, that every measurement is his way of saying he cares. Daniel lies in the darkness. He doesn't answer, but his hand finds Hannah's and squeezes it 3 times. It's their signal from a past life, the one he remembers and she doesn't know about. 3 squeezes. I love you. The 8th month. Daniel sits in the basement and counts. On the table in front of him lies Hannah's chest plate, the 3rd one. He made the first one from guild scrap and leather scraps. He assembled the second one from steel plates that Hannah brought back after a raid on a D-class dungeon. He's designing the 3rd one from scratch. Hannah now ventures into C-class dungeons. The monsters there deal damage ranging from 800 to 1,500 points. Her current defense is 340. The difference is deadly. One missed hit and Sora won't have time to heal her. Daniel knows this. He counts every day, every night. He sleeps no more than 5 hours. Hannah leaves at 6 in the morning. Daniel goes down to the basement at 6:30 and comes back up when she returns. In between, he works. He needs steel that isn't available on the market. Guild blacksmiths work with 3 grades of steel: soft, medium, hard. The system classifies them into 3 levels, and everyone in the kingdom considers that sufficient. Daniel sees a 40% variation within each grade. 2 pieces of steel with the same system rating of medium quality can differ in actual hardness as much as wood and stone. He needs a specific piece with specific parameters. He heads to Iris Holt. The Royal Armory occupies an entire block in the upper city, a stone building with 4 chimneys that never stop smoking. 2 guards stand at the entrance. Daniel shows his adventurer's registration card. The guard looks at his stats. Strength 7. Over 8 months of weekly raids in F-rank dungeons, he's raised his strength from 3 to 7. 4 points. A laughable result. The guard asks why he's at the Royal Armory. Daniel says he wants to buy a steel ingot. The guard lets him through. Technically, the armory sells materials to all registered users. In practice, only craftsmen ranked B or higher come here. Daniel enters and immediately feels the heat. 6 forge furnaces are operating simultaneously. Hammers strike the anvils. Sparks fly. The air smells of molten metal and smoke. He walks past the forges. He activates analysis on every item he sees. A sword on an anvil, quality 71.2. Good. A shield in a vise, quality 68.9. Average. A spearhead in a bucket of water, quality 82.4. Excellent. He walks on. In the far corner of the workshop stands a woman, tall, broad-shouldered. Her hair is pulled back under a leather strap. Her arms are covered in old burn scars up to her elbows. She holds a strip of red-hot steel in tongs and stares at it without blinking. Then she lowers it onto the anvil and strikes. 1 blow, precise. The steel rings out. She turns the strip and strikes again. Daniel stops. He activates analysis. He looks at the strip of steel beneath the hammer. 10 seconds, 20, 30. Numbers appear, and Daniel holds his breath. Quality, 94.7. He's seen hundreds of items over these past months. The best he'd encountered on the market was 73. The best in the guild was 81. This steel bar under the hammer of this unfamiliar woman is 94.7. He stands there and watches. The woman notices him. She looks up, dark eyes, an expressionless face. She asks what he wants. Daniel says he needs a steel blank for a breastplate. The woman nods toward the rack against the wall. She says the blanks are there. The prices are on the signs. Daniel doesn't go to the rack. He looks at the woman. Then he says he wants a blank from her hands, not from the rack. The woman is silent. Then she asks why. Daniel says that the blanks on the rack range in quality from 60 to 75, but the one she's holding under the hammer has a quality rating of 94.7. The woman freezes. The hammer stops midair. She slowly lowers it. She looks at Daniel. She asks how he knew the exact quality rating. The system's rating for this workpiece is high. Half of what's on the shelf receives the same rating. How does he know the number after the decimal point? Daniel taps his temple with his finger. He says his skill shows more than the system does. The woman is silent for a long time. Then she says her name is Iris, Iris Holt. Daniel recognizes the last name, Holt, just like Captain Silverdawn's. He asks. Iris nods. She says Evan is her half-brother, different mother. He received the Thunderblade class and fame. She received a hammer and a workshop. Their father believed he had divided things fairly. She disagrees, but it doesn't matter. She forges. That's all she knows how to do and all she needs. Daniel says he wants to buy a blank from her and asks a question no one has ever asked her before. He asks what tempering temperature she uses. Iris flinches, not because of the question, because of how it's asked. Precise, specific, professional. She answers, 1,120 degrees. Holding time, 40 minutes. Oil quenching. Daniel nods. He says that this explains the quality, that at 1,120 degrees and oil quenching, she hits a narrow window of parameters that yields the maximum density of the steel's crystal lattice, that she does this intuitively, without calculations, and that her intuition is perfect. He literally uses that word, perfect. Iris stands motionless. Her hammer lies on the anvil. Her hands hang at her sides. She looks at the skinny guy with a strength rating of 7 who, in just 30 seconds, has described what she hadn't been able to put into words for 15 years. She knew that it was good. Everyone said it was good. But good isn't the right word. A butcher chops meat well. A sculptor carves stone well. Good doesn't mean anything. For the first time, someone looked at her work and gave a number, 94.7. For the first time, someone measured it. Iris turns around. She walks over to the shelf. She returns with a piece of work. She places it in front of Daniel. She says it's not from the shelf, it's from her personal collection. She doesn't know the exact quality, but she forged it herself 3 days ago. Daniel looks at it. He examines it. The quality is 96.1. He says the number out loud. Iris closes her eyes for a second. Then she opens them. She asks how much he'll pay. Daniel tells the truth. He says he has 15 copper coins, that a blank of this quality is worth no less than 5 silver coins, that he can't pay the full price. Iris is silent. Then she says the blank is his, for free, on one condition. He'll come back and assess everything she's made over the past year. Every sword, every shield, every spearhead. She wants to know her numbers. All of them, down to the tenths. Daniel nods. He takes the blank. It's heavy. His strength is 7. He carries it with both hands, pressing it against his chest. On his way out, the guard looks at him in bewilderment, a skinny guy hugging a chunk of steel like a child. Daniel walks home, 3 kilometers, with a blank weighing 8 kilograms. He stops every 200 meters. His endurance is 9. It's not enough. But he carries on, because he's going to make a breastplate for Hana out of this steel. A breastplate that can withstand a blow from a Class C monster. He works on the breastplate for 3 weeks, 14 hours every day. He doesn't have a forge. He doesn't have an anvil of the right size. He can't forge like Iris. But he doesn't need to forge. He needs to cut and fit. He cuts the blank with a hacksaw he bought with his last copper coins. He cuts along the lines he marked out with an accuracy of 1/10 of a millimeter. He checks every cut with analysis. He corrects every deviation with a file. 12 plates, 6 for the chest, 4 for the sides, 2 for the back. Each plate is tailored to Hana's body, to her height, to the width of her shoulders, to the curve of her ribs, to the way she breathes when she swings her sword, to the way she turns when she dodges. He knows her body by heart, not as a husband, as an engineer. Every centimeter has been measured, every angle has been calculated. The first prototype doesn't work. The plates are too rigid around the shoulders. They limit her swing by 4 degrees. Unacceptable. He redesigns it. The second prototype, too heavy, 6.2 kilograms. With Hana weighing 56 kilograms, this reduces her speed by 3%. That's too much. He trims off the excess. Third prototype, the straps chafe the skin under her armpits. He redesigns the straps. Fourth, fifth, sixth. Each prototype is closer to the ideal. Each one is measured. Each one is documented. Pages of blueprints marked with red chalk appear in Hana's gear notebook. Remove this, add that, shift this by a millimeter. Daniel stops at the 12th prototype. He analyzes the data. Protection rating, 187. Actual value, 191.4. Weight, 4.8 kilograms. Speed reduction, 1.1%. Mobility restriction, 0. 0. Hana can move just as freely in this chest plate as she can without it. Daniel looks at the finished chest plate and feels what he felt at the factory in Busan when the part passed all tolerances on the first try. Satisfaction. Pure. Quiet. Professional. He goes upstairs. He places the chest plate on a chair. Next to it, he lays out Hana's house robe, ironed. He places her sword on the nightstand, the 12th sharpening since he first reforged it. He prepares dinner. Rice, vegetables, meat that Lena brought yesterday from the guild ration. Hana arrives at 8 in the evening. She sees the breastplate on the chair. She picks it up. She tries it on. She fastens the straps. She makes 3 movements: stance, swing, dodge. She freezes. She looks at Daniel. She doesn't say a word. She takes off the breastplate. She puts it back on the chair. She walks over to him. She hugs him for a long time, in silence. Then, she says that tomorrow there's a raid on a B-class dungeon, the team's first one, that Captain Evan is leading them to the Stone Guardian, a B-rank boss, attack power over 3,000, that she's scared. Daniel hugs her back. He says the chest plate will hold up, that he calculated it for 3,500, that she just needs to watch out for one thing. Don't expose her left side below the 5th rib. That's the thinnest spot. He couldn't fully compensate for it due to mobility limitations. Hana steps back. She looks at him. She says he just told her the number of a rib. Daniel says it's the 5th rib on the left. To be precise, the area between the 4th and 6th. Hana shakes her head. She smiles. She says she loves him. Daniel checks the straps on her chest harness. He says he knows that her pulse is steady. Year 1. Daniel stands at a table in the basement and stares at the wall. On the wall is a chart that has grown over 12 months to 340 entries, 340 items measured and documented, 340 data sets, 340 points on the map of the system he's drawing in his head. His own stats. Strength 11, Dexterity 12, Stamina 13, Intelligence 14, Mana 0, Level 4. Over the course of a year, he's risen 4 levels. Any adventurer his age would be at least level 25 by now. Daniel is at level 4. He ventures into F-class dungeons twice a week. He's moved on from slugs to rats, from rats to beetles. Each new opponent requires a week of observation before he engages in combat. He's no hero. He's a researcher who kills his test subjects after fully documenting them. Slow, boring, effective. Mana is still 0. Class, Observer. The analysis skill has sped up by 22%. Now, a full analysis of an object takes 8 seconds instead of 10. For a living creature in motion, it still takes between 30 seconds and a minute. In combat, that's an eternity. But Daniel doesn't fight in combat. He fights before combat. On the table in front of him lies a note from Hana. She left on a Class B raid 2 days ago. Usually, raids last 1 day. This one has dragged on. The note is short. The boss turned out to be tougher than expected. Will be a while. Don't worry. Daniel is worried. He doesn't show it. He sits in the basement and works, but every 20 minutes he goes upstairs and looks out the window. On the 3rd day, Sora arrives, alone, without Hana. Daniel opens the door and sees her face, pale. Her eyes are red. She says the raid is over, that everyone's alive, that Hana's in the guild infirmary, 2 broken ribs, a laceration on her left forearm, a burn on her right thigh. She's stable, out of danger. Daniel grabs his jacket and heads out. Sora runs after him. As they go, she explains what happened. The Stone Guardian turned out to be not Class B, but B+. Its actual attack power isn't 3,000, but 4,200, a dungeon mutation. The monster had grown by 2 subranks in the time between the scouting mission and the raid. Evan Holt decided to continue the fight. He managed it, his strength allows it, but in the process, the Stone Guardian was knocked into the wall by a tail strike. Daniel's chest plate absorbed the main blow. Without it, she would be dead. But the side blow hit the very spot Daniel had pointed out to her before the raid. Her left side, between the 4th and 6th ribs. A vulnerable spot. Daniel isn't answering. He's walking quickly. His stamina is 13. He can walk at a brisk pace for 20 minutes without getting out of breath. The guild infirmary is on the other side of town. He gets there in 35 minutes. He spends the last 15 gasping for breath. He enters. A long corridor with beds on both sides. the smell of medicinal potions. Hana is lying on the fourth bed on the left. Her eyes are closed. She has a bandage on her left side. Her left arm is in a sling. Daniel sits down next to her. He takes her right hand. She opens her eyes. She looks at him. She tries to smile. She says the breastplate saved her life. That the healer in the infirmary said that upon impact with a 4,200 Standard B would have shattered into pieces and killed her, but her chest plate bent without breaking. It absorbed the impact and dispersed the energy across its entire surface. Daniel doesn't respond. He looks at the bandage. Then he says he wants to see the chest plate. Hana nods toward a chair by the wall. The chest plate is lying on the chair, crumpled, a dent on the left side the size of a fist. Daniel picks it up. He holds it up to the light. He activates analysis. He stands there for a minute. 2, 3. He examines every dent, every scratch, every bend in the deformed metal. Then he takes out a notebook. He begins to take notes. Impact from above. Angle, 47 degrees. Force, approximately 4,200 newtons. Rib number 3 held. Number 4 did not. Deformation zone from the 4th to the 7th rib. Dent depth, 2.3 centimeters. Cracks in the plate, 2. The length of the first is 4.1 centimeters. The length of the second is 2.8. The direction of the cracks points toward the point of force application, with an 11-degree offset from the perpendicular. Conclusion: redesign the rib plates. Add 2 millimeters of thickness in the zone between ribs 4 and 7. Change the angle of the joint between the side and front plates by 3 degrees for better force dissipation. Hana lies there, watching him. He stands by the window, holding the broken breastplate in his hands, and jots down numbers. His face is calm. His hand does not tremble. His voice is steady as he dictates the data to himself. But Hana sees his eyes, and there is no calm in those eyes. There is rage, silent, cold. The engineering fury of a man who allowed a defect, and whose defect nearly killed the only person he works for. Hana speaks softly. She says that he isn't just fixing a vest right now. He's fixing her. Daniel looks up. He looks at her. For the first time in their entire life together across both worlds, he answers directly. He says yes. Then he closes his notebook. He sits down next to her. He takes her hand, and he sits in silence for 3 hours until she falls asleep. Then he stands up. He takes the breastplate. He walks home. He goes down to the basement, and he starts working. The next morning, Lena comes to him, without knocking. She opens the basement door and walks down the stairs. Daniel is sitting at the table. Around him are the plates of the dismantled breastplate. Lena is silent. Then she says she came to tell him something. That what happened in the dungeon wasn't exactly as Sora described it. That Sora didn't see everything. Daniel looks up. Lena says that Captain Evan knew the monster had mutated. He knew before the raid. A guild scout had reported it to him the day before. Evan decided not to tell the team because he thought he could handle it. That a B+ was no problem for him. And he was right. It wasn't a problem for him. It was a problem for Hana, for Sora, for Lena, for everyone 2 ranks below him. Evan deprived them of the right to know what they were going into battle against, because in his calculations, they were variables, not people. Daniel is silent. Then he asks if she's sure. Lena pulls a folded sheet of paper out of her pocket, a copy of the scout's report. The date, the day before the raid. Evan's signature in the acknowledged column. Daniel takes the sheet. He reads it. He puts it on the table. He stands up. He walks to the wall. He picks up a piece of charcoal. He writes a new word on the wall next to the measurement chart. Evan Holt. Below it, threat. Lena looks at the wall, then at Daniel. She says he's no match for the captain of the Silver Dawn, that Evan is the greatest adventurer of his generation, that his strength is over 200, while Daniel's is 11. Daniel says he has no intention of fighting him, that he's going to measure him, because every object, every monster, and every person has tolerances, weak spots that the system doesn't reveal, and Evan Holt is no exception. Lena leaves. Daniel returns to the chest plate. He works on it. 2 days later, Hana is discharged from the infirmary. Dale meets her at the door. He takes her home. A new chest plate is waiting on a chair, the 13th prototype. Zone 4-7 has been reinforced. 2 millimeters have been added. The joint angle has been adjusted. The weight has increased by 200 grams. The speed has been reduced by 0.3%. Acceptable. Hana takes the chest plate. She tries it on. She nods. She doesn't smile. She's still pale. Her ribs ache. But she nods, because she knows this chest plate is her 13th life, and that the 14th is already taking shape in her husband's mind. Year 1. the 10th month. A person Daniel wasn't expecting arrives at the small apartment in the Artisan District. May Park, 24 years old, an analyst with Black Audit. She knocks on the door at 9 in the morning when Hannah has already left for training. Daniel opens the door. He sees a short woman in a business-like gray suit with a tablet under her arm and thin-framed glasses. Her smile is calculated. Her posture is confident. Every detail of her appearance suggests she's used to being in control of the situation. Daniel activates analysis. 8 seconds. Numbers. Strength, 22. Agility, 31. Intelligence, 89. Mana, 45. Class, Order Inspector. Level, 31. Skill, System Check. She's not a fighter. She's a bureaucrat. But a bureaucrat with an intelligence of 89 and access to the royal databases. May introduces herself. She says she's from the Systems Control Department of the Royal Chancellery. She doesn't mention the term Black Audit. She says she's conducting a routine inspection of the Silver Dawn team's equipment. She noticed a statistical anomaly in Hannah Yoon's damage stats. Her damage output is increasing 23% faster than expected for her level and class. Her equipment passes all official inspections, but the numbers don't add up. Someone is adjusting her gear with a precision unattainable by any registered master in the kingdom. May says all this while looking Daniel in the eye. She smiles. She waits for his reaction. Daniel silently steps back from the door. He gestures for her to come in. May enters. She looks around the room. She sees a door leading to the basement. She asks what's down there. Daniel says it's a workshop. May asks to see it. Daniel leads her downstairs. May descends the steps and stops. She had expected to see anything: a makeshift blacksmith shop, an alchemical laboratory, an illegal equipment modification workshop. Instead, she sees a table, notebooks, a wall with a table of 340 entries, scales, files, a ruler, a set square. No magic, no potions, no forbidden tools, just paper, numbers, and tools you can buy at any market. May walks up to the wall. She reads the entries. Item, Standard Guild Sword. System rating, Attack 50. Actual value, Attack 47.3. Deviation, -2.7. Item, Basic Healing Potion. System rating, Healing 25. Actual value, 27.1. Deviation, +2.1. Item after item, line after line. 340 measurements, each accurate to the 10th. May reads in silence. For a long time. Then she turns to Daniel. Her smile is gone. Her face wears an expression Daniel has seen on the faces of quality control inspectors when they're shown data that didn't fit any model. She asks how he gets the numbers after the decimal point. Daniel says that his analysis skill shows the actual values, not the system's values. May shakes her head. She says that's impossible, that the system outputs whole numbers. That's a fundamental principle of the tablet. Whole numbers, a single scale, no fractions. 200 years of research confirm this. Daniel shrugs. He says that the system shows whole numbers. Reality doesn't. Reality is always fractional. The system just rounds it off. May is silent. She opens her tablet. She writes something down. Then she closes it. She looks at Daniel. She says that according to protocol, she must confiscate his records, file a case for unauthorized modification of equipment, and forward the materials to Black Audit. Pause. Daniel waits. May says that's according to protocol, but she has a question. If the system rounds off the numbers, if the actual values are fractional, if everything the kingdom knows about its weapons, potions, and monsters is based on rounded numbers, then everything they know is inaccurate. Daniel nods. He says it's not inaccurate, it's approximate. For most situations, the approximation is sufficient. For critical ones, it isn't. May is silent. Then she puts away her tablet. She sits down in a chair. She takes off her glasses, wipes them, puts them back on, and says she wants some tea. Daniel goes upstairs, makes tea, brings back 2 cups. They drink in silence. Then May says she won't confiscate the records. She won't open a case. Not yet. But she'll have access to his data. She'll come by, read his notebooks, ask questions. And if she decides he poses a threat to the system or the kingdom, she'll shut down his workshop in a single day. Daniel says he's not a threat, that he's an engineer, that engineers don't break systems, they study them. May finishes her tea. She stands up. She walks to the door. She stops in the doorway. She says that the Black Audit report for the past 5 years lists 17 cases of anomalous performance spikes among adventurers. All 17 were investigated. All 17 turned out to be either fraud, illegal alchemy, or stolen equipment. Hana Yoon's case is the 18th, and the only one where the cause turned out to be a person with a power level of 11 and a file. She leaves. Daniel closes the door. He stands there for a minute. Then he goes down to the basement. He opens a new notebook. He writes the title, Black Audit. May Park, Intelligence 89, Potential Ally. May returns 3 days later, without warning, with a folder of documents. She sits down at the table in the basement. She places the folder in front of Daniel. She says it contains official data on dungeon mutations over the past year. There are 47 recorded instances of discrepancies between a dungeon's stated rank and the actual strength of its monsters. All 47 cases are classified as natural fluctuations, random deviations. May says she doesn't believe in random deviations, not when there are 47 in a year, not when the average over the previous 20 years was 3 per year. She asks Daniel to look at the data through his own eyes. Daniel opens the folder. He reads tables, dates, dungeon coordinates, reported rank, actual rank at the time the anomaly was detected, number of casualties. He reads for 2 hours. May sits beside him in silence. Daniel closes the folder. He says she's right. These aren't random deviations. Fluctuations have no pattern. This data has a pattern. The mutations are spreading in waves from the center to the periphery. The center, the capital, Calderon. More precisely, the bottomless rift beneath the capital. An underground chamber that hasn't been sealed for 200 years. Something down there is altering the settings. Not randomly, systematically, as if someone were turning a knob. May turns pale. Then she pulls out a second tablet. She shows a map. All 47 mutations are marked on it with dots. Daniel looks at the map and sees what May didn't see because she isn't an engineer. The dots don't form a chaotic scattering, but a spiral, an Archimedean spiral, uniform expansion from the central point. Each turn is wider than the previous one by the same distance. 12.4 kilometers between turns, plus or minus 0.3. Daniel takes a piece of charcoal. He draws a spiral on a bare wall. He marks the mutation points. Each one falls on a line. Perfect. May looks at the wall. Her hands are shaking. She says that if he's right, then the mutations aren't a system glitch. It's a signal. Someone or something inside the bottomless rift is transmitting an effect to the surrounding dungeons according to a mathematically precise model. Daniel nods, and he adds, he says the pattern looks familiar to him. It's not a random spiral. It's a standard calibration scan pattern. At the factory in Busan, they used exactly the same pattern when testing new equipment. They ran a test cycle that moved from the center to the periphery in an expanding spiral to check the range, to find the limit. Someone is testing the system from the inside. May is silent for a long time. Then she says she needs to go, that she needs to think, that she'll be back. She takes the folder, leaves a copy of the map. She leaves. She stops at the door. She says she's believed her whole life that the system is fair, that the numbers are honest, that if you're strong, you've earned it, that if you're weak, that's what the tablet decided, that this is order, that order is good. Daniel says that order is good, but order and fairness aren't the same thing. May puts on her glasses. She smiles, but it's a different kind of smile, not a calculated one, a genuine one, and a weary one. She leaves. Year 1, 11th month. Captain Evan Holt invites Hana in for a talk, alone, after training, in the captain's office on the top floor of Silver Dawn headquarters. Hana tells Daniel about it that evening. He listens. He doesn't interrupt. Hana says that Evan was polite, that he praised her progress, that he spoke of her potential, that she could become the best in the kingdom, the first woman to reach S rank among swordsmen, that he believes in her, that he sees her as the future of the team. And then he said something else. He said that Daniel was holding her back, that as long as she's dragging her husband, with a strength rating of 11, along behind her, she won't be able to move forward, that the other adventurers are laughing behind her back, that her reputation is suffering, that she could be number 1 if she weren't dragging that dead weight along with her. Hana falls silent. Daniel waits. Hana says she didn't know what to say, that she just stood there in silence, that for the first time in her life, she felt ashamed. Not for herself, but because she was ashamed of him, and that she hates herself for that split second of shame. Daniel is silent. Then he asks what she told Evan. Hana says nothing, that she walked out of the office. Daniel nods. He doesn't offer comfort. He isn't angry. He isn't offended. He's thinking. Evan Holt is pressuring Hana, not out of malice, out of logic, his own logic, the logic of a strong man who considers weakness a disease. Daniel understands this logic. At the factory in Busan, there was a boss who fired people for a single mistake, not because he was cruel, because he believed that one mistake meant there would be a second. The mathematics of culling, cold, rational, wrong, because it doesn't account for one variable. A person isn't a cog in a machine. A person learns. A week later, what Daniel had been waiting for and fearing happens. For the first time, Hana speaks publicly about him. At a general team meeting, Evan raises the question of the roster for the next raid, an A-class mission, the team's first with a full roster. He says that every member must be in peak condition, that he will personally check each fighter's gear, that the Silver Dawn standard is the best. Hana stands up. Everyone looks at her. She says calmly that without Daniel, she wouldn't have reached B rank, that every item she's wearing was crafted or refined by her husband, that he sees what the system doesn't, that he's the only reason her damage is 23% higher than calculated. The room falls silent. Boris Wren raises an eyebrow. Theo Vance adjusts his glasses. Lena stares at the wall. Sora clutches her notebook. Evan smiles. He says he appreciates her loyalty, that family is important, but that there's no place for loyalty in an A-class dungeon, only for strength, and that if her husband is that good, then let him come and show his work officially during the pre-raid inspection. Hana agrees. Daniel finds out about this that evening. Hana apologizes. She says she shouldn't have agreed without asking him first. Daniel says it's all right, that he'll come, that he'll prove himself. 3 days later, Daniel enters the Silver Dawn headquarters for the first time, a white stone building on Calderon's central square. A golden coat of arms hangs above the entrance. Guards in silver armor stand watch. Daniel wears a work jacket stained with oil. His registration card shows a strength rating of 11. A guard lets him through with an expression that says, "This must be someone's bad joke." The training hall. Spacious, high ceiling, weapon racks along the walls. The whole team is assembled. Evan stands in the center. His arms are crossed over his chest. Boris is next to him. Theo is behind them. Lena is by the wall. Sora is in the corner with a notebook. Hana stands apart, between the team and the door, between them and him. Evan nods. He says he's glad to finally meet her, that Hana has told him a lot about her, that he respects men who support their wives. Every word sounds polite. Every word implies that he considers Daniel a domestic servant. Daniel doesn't react to the tone. He looks at Evan. 8 seconds of analysis. Numbers. Strength, 214. Dexterity, 178. Stamina, 196. Intelligence, 43. Mana, 112. Level 67. And a hidden line that the system doesn't show. Growth potential, 71 out of 100. Good, but not exceptional. Lower than Hana's. Daniel takes note. He doesn't show that he's seen it. Evan gestures toward the table. The team's gear lies on it. 6 swords, 4 sets of armor, 2 bows, and a set of potions. He says this is their gear for an A-class raid, the best available. Let Hana's husband show what he can improve. Daniel walks over to the table. He picks up the first sword, Evan's sword. It's heavy, a 2-handed sword. The system rates it at 340 attack, an elite weapon. Daniel looks at it. He analyzes it. 10 seconds. Then he puts the sword back on the table. He picks up the next one, analyzes it, puts it down. The next one. He goes through all the gear. 6 swords, 4 sets, 2 bows, 25 potions. It takes 20 minutes. The room waits in silence. Daniel turns to Evan. He announces the result. Evan's sword. System attack, 340. Actual, 332.7. The center of gravity is offset by 2 millimeters, which reduces the effectiveness of a vertical strike by 1.8%. The blade is overheated near the guard. After 200 hours of intense combat, a microcrack will form at this point. The remaining service life under current load is approximately 4 months. The room is silent. Evan doesn't smile. Daniel continues. Boris's armor. System protection, 410. Actual, 398.3. The left shoulder guard is 3 millimeters wider than the right, creating a 7-degree blind spot when turning left. Lena's bow. System damage, 285. Actual damage, 291.4. That's 2% higher than advertised. The bow is better than its owner thinks, but the bowstring is stretched by 0.4%, which will reduce accuracy by the end of a prolonged battle. Potions. 3 out of 25 have expired. The system shows them as active because the degradation is below the display threshold. In reality, their effectiveness is reduced by 40%. They won't save her at a critical moment. Daniel says all this in an even voice, without a pause, without emotion, as if reading a factory inspection report. When he finishes, the room falls silent. Boris looks at his shoulder bag. Theo pulls out one of the 3 potions mentioned and sniffs it suspiciously. Lena touches the bowstring. Evan stands motionless. His face reveals nothing. Then he takes his sword. He looks at the spot on the guard that Daniel had pointed out. He runs his finger over it. He feels nothing. Because you can't find a microcrack with your fingers. It's inside the metal. It's invisible, but it's there, and Daniel sees it. Evan puts down his sword. He says he's impressed, that this is useful information, that he's grateful. His voice is steady. His eyes are empty. In his eyes, Daniel sees something that can't be measured by analysis. Fear. Not of Daniel, of what Daniel has just done in front of his entire team. He's shown that the captain of the kingdom's strongest team is carrying a defective sword and doesn't know it. But a man with a strength rating of 11 does. Daniel walks out of headquarters. Hana catches up to him on the street. She takes his hand. She's silent. Then she says that Evan will hate him now. Daniel says he knows, that it was necessary, that the team needs to know the truth about their equipment before an A-class raid. Because an A-class raid isn't a training exercise. People get killed there. Hana squeezes his hand. She says she's right there, no matter what happens. Daniel squeezes her hand in response, 3 times. Year 1, month 12, preparations for an A-class raid. Daniel hasn't slept for 4 nights. Items are laid out on a table in the basement. Hana's chest plate, the 14th prototype. Lena's shoulder pad, the 3rd version. A set of modified potions for Sora. 12 vials in which he's combined expired potions with active ones, adding stabilizers made from commercially available ingredients. Each vial is labeled. Each one lists the actual healing value, not the system-generated one. He's preparing the team for the raid. Not his own team. Hana's team. Evan's team. The man who wants to cut him out of Hana's life. Daniel is preparing gear for a man who despises him, because that gear will protect the people around Hana. And the people around Hana are her life. The logic is simple. It's engineering logic. If a link in a chain is weak, the chain breaks. If Boris misses a shot because of a blind spot in his shoulder pad, Hana will be left without cover. If Sora's potion doesn't work at a critical moment, Hana will be left without healing. So Daniel is working for everyone, even for Evan. After checking their gear at headquarters, the situation changed. Boris Wren came to Daniel on his own, silently. He brought the shoulder pad. He placed it on the table. He said one word. Fix it. Daniel fixed it. He eliminated the 3mm discrepancy. The dead zone disappeared. Boris took the shoulder harness. On his way out, he paused. He said that the captain wasn't a bad person, that he simply believes the world operates by simple rules. The strong survive, the weak do not. That Evan's mentor had died 3 years ago during an A-class raid because there was a weak link in the team, and the mentor shielded him with his own body. Since then, Evan has had no tolerance for the weak around him. Not out of cruelty, out of fear of losing someone else. Daniel listened. He nodded. He didn't change his assessment. Fear is an understandable reason, but fear that drives a commander to hide information from his crew isn't protection, it's control. And control and care are 2 different things. Theo Vance came by too. He brought 3 expired potions. He said he'd checked the rest and found 2 more with a suspicious sediment. He asked to be taught how to tell the difference. Daniel spent 2 hours with him, explaining how to determine the degradation of potions by the color of the sediment, the smell, and the viscosity. Theo left with 4 pages of notes and the look on the face of someone who'd just been shown that the world is more complicated than he thought. Iris Holt came twice. The first time, she brought a new batch of steel, grade 97.2, the best Daniel had ever seen in this world. He told her so. She nodded. She didn't smile. But her shoulders straightened by a centimeter. The second time, she came with a question. She asked if Daniel knew what was going on between her brother and Hana. Daniel said he did. Iris was silent for a moment. Then she said that Evan didn't know how to back down, that if he'd decided Hana would be better off without Daniel, he'd see it through to the end. Daniel said he didn't know how to back down either. Iris looked at him. For the first time in all their meetings, her face showed emotion, something between respect and sadness. She said she hoped one of them would stop before it was too late. Yuna came down to the basement just as she had every third day since Daniel had fixed her father's scales. Small, skinny, 17 years old, apprentice class, stats slightly higher than Daniel's. She's the only person in the world who considers Daniel great. Not potentially great, not secretly great, just great. From day one. Because he fixed the scales and looked at her as an equal. Not like a girl behind the counter. Not like an apprentice with pitiful stats. But like a person who knows how to look at something for a long time. And for Daniel, that's the only thing that matters. Yuna comes and works alongside him. She hands him tools. She writes down numbers as he dictates them. She cleans up the shavings. She learns, slowly. Daniel doesn't rush her. He himself learns slowly. At the factory in Busan, it took him 3 years to become a senior metrologist. 3 years of daily measurements. Boring, monotonous, precise. Yuna doesn't complain about the boredom. She complains about something else. She says she was rejected by the Craftsman's Academy she wanted to attend. They said that with her stats, she could only be an assistant, not a master. That a master must have a minimum strength of 30 to work with heavy materials. Yuna has 14. Daniel listens. Then he says that a strength of 30 is needed to strike an anvil with a large hammer. But an anvil isn't the only way to work metal. There's a file, there's a whetstone, there are vice grips and a lever, there's patience. Yuna stares at him with wide eyes. He says she'll learn, from him, that he isn't a master blacksmith and has no intention of becoming one, but he knows how to measure, and he can teach her to see what the system doesn't see, and then she'll decide for herself what to do with that knowledge. Yuna nods so quickly, she almost drops the lamp. The night before the raid. Daniel sits on the bed. Hana sleeps beside him. Her breathing is steady. Tomorrow she's heading into an A-class dungeon. Monsters with attack power ranging from 5,000 to 10,000. Her defense is 340 in a reinforced breastplate. The gap is enormous. She'll survive not because of her defense, but because of her speed and skill. The Lightblade class grants her the Holy Slash skill, which pierces any defense if it hits a weak spot. But you have to know where the weak spot is. Evan knows from experience. Boris knows by instinct. Hana knows because Daniel told her. Every B-class monster she's fought over the past few months had been analyzed in advance by Daniel. He went to the guild library. He read reports. He found descriptions. He analyzed illustrations. And he made index cards for Hana. Small pieces of paper about the size of a palm. On each one, the monster's name, type, weak points, attack intervals, damage radius, and optimal angle of approach. Hana studied these index cards every morning at breakfast, like a student preparing for an exam. For the Class A raid, Daniel had prepared 14 index cards, one for each type of monster registered in the target dungeon. He doesn't sleep. He goes over the cards in his head. Class A Stone Golem. Attack power, 6,400. Weak point, the joint between the neck and shoulder. Attack angle, 34 degrees from bottom to top. Interval between attacks, 3.2 seconds. Shadow Serpent. Attack power, 5,100. Weak point, the third segment of the body, counting from the head. Attacks in bursts of 3. Pause between bursts, 5.8 seconds. Poisonous Hornet. Attack power, 7,200. Weak point, the base of the wings. Dive speed, 14 meters per second. But the turn takes 2.1 seconds. Vulnerable after the dive. He goes over all 14, again and again, testing himself, looking for mistakes. Finds none. The numbers are correct. He's confident. But confidence doesn't take away the fear. He's not afraid for himself. He's afraid for her. For the woman sleeping next to him, breathing steadily, unaware that he lies awake, calculating her odds. A 94% survival rate if all his recommendations are followed to the letter. 94. 6% for unforeseen circumstances, for mutations, for mistakes, for chance. 6%. An A-class raid lasts 3 days. Daniel waits in the basement. He works. He sharpens a spare sword for Hana. He double-checks his notes. He counts the hours. On the second day, May arrives. She sits down on a step. She says that Black Audit has a connection to the teams inside the dungeons via beacons on their gear, that she can check their status. Daniel looks up. May pulls out her tablet. She taps the screen. She reads. 5 beacons are active. All team members are alive. Current position, the 7th chamber out of 12. Progress is normal. Health losses are within acceptable limits. Daniel exhales. He doesn't thank her. May isn't expecting thanks. She comes because she has her own reasons. She comes because in this basement, there is the only person in the kingdom who sees the world exactly as she wants to see it. Exactly. On the evening of the 3rd day, Hana returns. She walks through the door, dirty, tired. Her left wrist guard is cracked, a scratch on her cheek, but she's still standing. She smiles. She says the raid was a success. The boss has been defeated. No casualties. Her status has been updated. R-Ang-B. Officially. The guild will register it tomorrow. Daniel takes the bracelet from her. He examines the scratch on her cheek. Depth, 0.2 millimeters. Not dangerous. He takes the chest plate. He analyzes it. 3 new dents, all within acceptable limits. None in Zone 4-7 zone. Hana has taken note. He places the chest plate on the table. He pours her some soup. She eats. She recounts the details. A Class A stone golem. Attack power 6,400, just as he predicted. The weak point is at the junction of the neck and shoulder. Hana landed her hit on the second strike. The angle was 34 degrees, just as indicated on the card. Shadow Serpent, a series of 3 attacks, a 5.8-second pause. Hana counted in her head. She struck on the 4th second, when the snake hadn't yet started a new series, but had already slowed down after the previous one. It worked perfectly. Then she fell silent. Her expression changed. She said things had gone badly in the 11th hall. Poisonous hornet. Not just 1, according to intelligence reports. 3. Mutation. Another mutation. Evan killed the first one in a minute. Boris held off the second. The third came in from the flank. No one expected it. Hana stood between the hornet and Sora. The hornet dove, 14 meters per second. Hana remembered the datasheet. Dive speed, 14 meters per second. Turn time, 2.1 seconds. Vulnerable after the dive. She didn't dodge. She took a defensive stance. She took the hit on her chest plate. The chest plate held. The hornet hung in mid-turn. Hana struck the base of its wings. Holy slash, a clean hit. The hornet fell. The Sora behind her was unharmed. Hana says that at that moment she thought of one thing, that she was standing before a monster with an attack power of 7,200 and wasn't afraid. Not because she's strong, because she knows the numbers. Because every stat of this creature is written on the card in her pocket. Because somewhere in the basement of a small apartment in the Artisan Quarter, her husband had already calculated this fight for her. Daniel listens. He's silent. Then he takes the chest plate and goes down to the basement. He needs to reinforce the front line. If she's going to take diving attacks to the chest, and she will because she's Hana and she'll always stand between the monster and Sora, then the front line needs to hold at 7,500, not 7,200, with a margin. He works until morning. The next day, something happens that changes everything. Evan Holt calls Hana in for a second meeting. Not in his office, but in the training hall in front of the team. He says the raid was a success thanks to the skill of every fighter, that he's proud, that the team is ready for the next step, an A-plus raid, the Devourer's Dungeon, one of the strongest in the kingdom, and that for this raid, he needs Hana at full strength, no distractions, no unnecessary baggage. He looks at Hana and says he knows about the cards, that he's seen her reading them before entering the dungeons, that it's a crutch, that a true fighter senses a monster, rather than reading about it on a piece of paper, that her husband is making her dependent on data instead of letting her grow on her own. Hana stands there, silent. Lena takes a step forward. She says the captain is wrong, that the cards saved Sora's life in the 11th hall. Evan turns to Lena. He says he didn't ask for her opinion. Boris puts his hand on Lena's shoulder, silently. She falls silent. Evan looks at Hana again. He says he's setting a condition for the A-plus raid. Hana will go without the cards, without her husband's gear, in standard Silver Dawn gear. If she can handle it, she's worthy of the team. If not, Evan doesn't finish his sentence. He doesn't need to. Hana goes home. She tells him. Daniel listens. Then he asks when the raid is. Hana says in 3 weeks. Daniel nods. 3 weeks, he thinks. Evan has set a condition that's impossible to fulfill honestly. Silver Dawn's standard gear is made by the Royal Smiths. It's good, but it isn't tailored to Hana. She'll lose 18% of her damage, 12% of her mobility. Without her cards, she'll go into an A-plus dungeon blindly, not knowing the weak points of monsters she's never encountered before. Evan knows this. He doesn't want her to fail. He wants her to choose, between her husband and the team, between Daniel and Silver Dawn. Daniel understands this game. He's not going to play along. He's going to break it. That night, he doesn't go to sleep. He takes out a new notebook. He writes the title, The Devourer's Dungeon, level A+, and he gets to work. If Hana can't carry the cards, she'll memorize everything. If Hana can't carry his gear, he'll teach her to make up for the difference with technique. If Evan wants a war of data against instinct, Daniel will show him what data is capable of when its bearer has learned it like their own name. 3 weeks of training. Every evening after practice, Hana sits down at the table across from Daniel. He lays out the cards in front of her, all 22 types of monsters registered in the Devourer's dungeon. Hana learns them. She doesn't just read them, she memorizes them, like the multiplication table. Stone Titan, A+, strength 8,800, with weak point, the knee joint of the rear right leg. Interval between attacks, 2.4 seconds. Acid Leviathan, strength 9,100, weak point, the gill slit on the left side, attacks in double bursts, pause between bursts, 3.1 seconds. And so on for all 22. Hana reviews them before bed. She reviews them in the morning at breakfast. She reviews them in a whisper on the way to training. In a week, she knows every number. In 2 weeks, she can identify any monster by description and recite its stats in 3 seconds. Daniel tests her. He asks questions like an examiner. Hana answers without hesitation. He nods. But that's not enough. Monster data is only half the battle. The other half is gear. Hana will go in the standard Silver Dawn gear. Daniel can't touch her. That's Evan's condition. But Evan didn't say Daniel couldn't touch Hana. Not her gear, her body. Daniel goes to Sora. He asks her to explain how buff potions work, potions that provide temporary enhancements. Sora explains. Buff potions provide a fixed bonus to stats for a set amount of time. A strength potion adds plus 20 to strength for 1 hour. A dexterity potion adds plus 15 for 40 minutes. Standard ones, expensive, but affordable for an A-rank team. Daniel asks if it's possible to drink several potions at once. Sora says yes, but the effects don't stack linearly. 2 strength potions won't give plus 40, they'll give a plus 30 bonus. 3 will give a plus 35 bonus, diminishing returns. Everyone knows this. Everyone thinks the optimal approach is 1 potion of each type. Daniel shakes his head. He says everyone is wrong, because they're basing their calculations on system values, on whole numbers. But real-world values are fractional, and diminishing returns are fractional too. He runs a calculation. 6 hours, 30 pages. The result? The optimal combination for Hana isn't 1 potion of each type. It's 2 strength potions, 1 agility potion, and 1 stamina potion, taken in a specific sequence with a 40-second interval. Exactly 40. Not 30, not 50. 40 seconds between doses. Because Hana's body, with her specific mana of 67 and specific stamina of 88, absorbs potions at a specific rate, and if she gets into the rhythm of absorption, the diminishing returns are reduced. Instead of a plus 30 bonus from 2 strength potions, she'll get a plus 37 bonus, a difference of 7 points. At the A level, 7 points of strength is 1 extra hit, enough to pierce a monster's hide. Or not enough, if you don't know that number. Daniel shows Sora the calculation. Sora reads it again, looks at him, says it's impossible, that no one calculates it that way, that alchemy textbooks say the interval between potions doesn't matter. Daniel says the textbooks were written by people who see whole numbers, but he sees fractions. Sora is silent. Then she takes out her notebook. She writes down the formulas. She says she'll check it out. 2 days later, Sora returns with the results. She tested it on herself. 2 mana potions taken 40 seconds apart gave her a plus 24 mana boost. The system value is plus 20. But she feels more. Her spells are more powerful than usual after the 2 potions. She measured it. Daniel was right. Sora looks at him with eyes that no longer show surprise. There is understanding. She's starting to see what he sees. The system as a mechanism, spells as formulas, the body as a device. She isn't an engineer yet, but she's no longer just a mage. Second week. Daniel is working with Lena. Lena will be on the raid with her own gear. Evan didn't set any conditions for her, only for Hana. Daniel is fine-tuning Lena's bow. He replaces the bowstring with a new one he wove himself from 3 types of thread. Standard mana-reinforced thread for the base, silk thread for elasticity, and hair-thin copper wire to stabilize the tension. No one adds copper to a bowstring. It sounds absurd. Copper is heavy and inelastic. But Daniel calculated that 0.3 grams of copper, distributed evenly along the length of the bowstring, dampens vibration by 8% when the arrow is released. Less vibration means a more accurate flight. A more accurate flight means hitting a vital spot from a distance 5 meters farther away. 5 meters. The difference between life and death for an archer. Lena tries the new bowstring. She shoots 10 arrows. All 10 land closer together than usual. She runs her fingers along the bowstring. She feels the copper, the thin thread inside. She shakes her head. She says he's crazy. Daniel says he's a metrologist. Lena says it's the same thing. Week 3. May arrives with new data. The mutation spiral has expanded. 6 new cases have been added in a month. All are on the spiral's path. The deviation from Daniel's predicted model is less than 1%. The model works. Something in the bottomless rift is continuing to scan, and the scanning is accelerating. May says that, according to her calculations, in a year, the spiral will reach the kingdom's borders. In 2 years, it will overrun the neighboring kingdoms. Mutations will be everywhere. Dungeons will no longer be predictable. Guilds won't be able to plan raids. The economy will collapse. Daniel looks at the map, at the spiral, at the numbers, and he says something May doesn't want to hear. He says that the scan isn't an attack. It's a diagnostic. Someone is checking whether the system is working as intended, and once the diagnostic is complete, the next phase will begin. Calibration, adjustment, parameter changes, and then it won't just be the monster's strength that changes. Everything will change. Classes, levels, stats, Aaron's entire life built on the system. May turns pale. She says they need to inform the king. Daniel says the king won't believe a person with a strength of 12 and a black audit analyst. They need proof. They need to enter the bottomless rift. They need to see what's inside. May says the bottomless rift is closed to all teams below S rank. Daniel says he knows that until Hana reaches S rank, they won't be able to enter. But Hana is growing faster than anyone else in the kingdom, and he'll grow alongside her, slowly, bit by bit, but together. Raid day. Hana stands by the door, in her standard Silver Dawn gear, without his breastplate, without his sword, without the cards. Daniel looks at her. She looks different in someone else's gear. Wrong, like a part inserted into the wrong mechanism. But she stands tall, looks him in the eyes, says that she knows all 22 cards by heart, that she remembers the potion intervals, 40 seconds, that she's ready. Daniel steps closer. He adjusts the strap on her standard chest plate, which is sitting 3 millimeters to the left of where it should be. He says nothing. Hana smiles. She says she knows it physically pains him to see the crooked strap. Daniel says that 3 millimeters isn't crooked, it's a deviation from the norm. Hana laughs. She kisses him. She leaves. Daniel stands by the window. Again. The raid on the Devourer's dungeon lasts 4 days. On the second day, the beacons stop transmitting. May reports this to Daniel at noon. She says the signal is gone. All 5 beacons at once. This happens when there's a strong magical field, or when the beacons are destroyed, or when the entire team is killed. Daniel stands in the basement. His hand, holding the file, freezes. He puts the file down on the table. He straightens up. He stands there for a minute. 2. Then he sits down. He does the math. The probability of all 5 beacons failing simultaneously, 0.003%. The probability of interference from a magical field in the A+ dungeon, 12%. The probability of the entire team's death. He doesn't calculate it. He refuses to calculate it. He waits. The 3rd day. The 4th. On the morning of the 5th day, Daniel gets out of the bed where he hasn't slept. He gets dressed. He takes from the shelf the object he's been working on for the last 3 months, a measuring rod. A steel rod 120 centimeters long, with markings. He marked each division by hand with a precision that no Aaron craftsman could match. The scale is no ordinary one. It is a scale of his skill. Each division corresponds to a unit of analysis. He doesn't know why he made this rod. He made it because an engineer needs a tool, and a measuring rod is the most basic tool of a metrologist. Here are his current stats. Strength 12, Dexterity 14, Stamina 16, Intelligence 18, Mana 0, Level 6. In a year and a half, he's risen 6 levels, a pitiful result by any adventurer's standards. But a strength of 12 is 4 times what it was when he first awoke. A dexterity of 14 is enough to dodge F-class monsters' attacks with his eyes closed. He knows their patterns by heart. Over the past year and a half, he's killed 47 slugs, 23 rats, and 8 beetles, each one methodically, each one by design. His experience accumulated bit by bit, 0.1 at a time, 0.3 at a time, 0.5 at a time, 1,000 actions, 1,000 measurements, 1,000 precise strikes to weak spots, and the analysis skill, which has accelerated by 48%, and now displays data in 5 seconds for a stationary object and in 20 seconds for a moving one. Daniel leaves the house. He heads toward the Devourer's dungeon. The entrance to Dungeon A+ is guarded by a dozen guards from the Elite Corps. The commander looks at Daniel's registration card. Strength 12, level 6. The commander says he won't let him through, that it's suicide, that he doesn't have clearance. Daniel says his wife is inside, that the beacons have been silent for 5 days, that he's going in. The commander shakes his head, says he can't. Daniel stands there. He doesn't leave. He stands there for an hour, 2, 3. The guards change shifts. He stands there. Around noon, May arrives with a document, the Black Audit Seal, special clearance for an agent of the Analytical Division and an accompanying person. The commander reads the document. He looks at the seal. He looks at May. He looks at Daniel. He lets them through. Daniel enters. The first hall of the A+ underground bears no resemblance to Class F. The ceiling is lost in the darkness. The walls are covered not with moss, but with black crystal that absorbs light. Underfoot is not mud, but stone, polished by thousands of footsteps and claws. The temperature is 8 degrees lower than outside. Daniel activates analysis. He scans the chamber. No monsters. The first hall is empty. The team passed through it days ago and cleared it out. He moves on. Hall after hall. Traces of battle are everywhere. Cracks in the walls from Evan's blows. Acid burns on the floor left by the monsters. Shards of crystal. Daniel counts the halls. 1st, 2nd, 5th, 8th. He stops in each one. He analyzes the traces. He reads the battle from the damage the way a forensic investigator reads a crime scene. Hana fought here. The angle of the cut on the wall is 34 degrees, her signature. Lena shot here. 3 arrows in the wall, 40 centimeters apart. A tight cluster. Precise shooting. The shoulder guard is working. Sora healed here. Traces of healing magic on the floor. The concentration is higher than standard. She's using his method of mana distribution. The 10th hall. The 11th. Daniel slows down. His stamina is 16. He's been walking for 4 hours without stopping. His legs are shaking. His breathing is labored, but he keeps going. In the 12th hall, he finds traces of a catastrophe. The walls are destroyed. The ceiling has partially collapsed. There's blood on the stones. Human blood. Daniel analyzes it. Type B blood. Hana is type A. It's not hers. Boris, type B. There's a significant amount of blood, but not enough to be fatal. Boris is wounded, but alive. He was alive when he left here. The tracks lead further, into the 13th hall, the Devourer's throne room. Daniel stands before the entrance, a massive stone archway. Beyond it lies darkness and sounds. Heavy breathing, the screech of metal, Sora's quiet voice reciting a spell. Daniel enters. The throne room is enormous. The ceiling is 30 meters high. In the center of the room stands a throne made of black stone. A creature lies before the throne. The dungeon boss, the Devourer. 10 eyes on a hideous head the size of a wagon. Its body is covered in armor made of bone plates. 4 legs, each as thick as a pillar. According to the official classification, its attack power is 9,400. The creature is alive. It lies there. It breathes. Its left front paw is slashed open. 3 of its 10 eyes are closed. But it's alive. Evan is kneeling before it. His sword is broken. Daniel sees it. The crack he warned about at headquarters. The sword couldn't hold up. It split in 2 during the fight. Evan is unarmed. His right arm hangs limply. His shoulder is dislocated. Boris is lying against the wall. He's conscious. His leg is in a splint made from a fragment of a shield. Theo stands before him with his arms raised in a defensive gesture. The barrier flickers. It's weak. His mana is running out. Sora sits on the floor between Boris and Lena. Lena is standing. Her bow is drawn. An arrow rests on the string. Her shoulder trembles, even with Daniel's shoulder pad. She's been shooting for too long. Her muscles are at their limit. And Hana. Hana stands before the Devourer, alone, between him and the team. A standard Silver Dawn sword in her hands. A standard breastplate on her chest. No cards. No gear of his. She stands there, gripping the hilt with both hands. and Daniel can tell from the position of her shoulders, the angle of her head, the way she's breathing, that she has only one thought, that she won't make it home. Daniel takes a step forward. His boots clatter on the stone floor. The sound echoes through the hall. Hana turns around. Her eyes widen. The devourer turns its 6 remaining eyes toward the new creature in the hall. Daniel walks on. Past Sora, who stares at him in horror. Past Lena, who lowers her bow. Past Evan, who lifts his head and sees a man with a strength of 12 walking toward an A-plus class boss. Daniel isn't wearing armor, just a work apron, no sword in his hands, a measuring rod, a steel rod with markings. The devourer creature stares at him with all 6 of its eyes. And if a 10-eyed creature can laugh, then it's laughing. Daniel stops 20 meters away. He activates analysis. 5 seconds. 10. 15. 20. A full analysis of a moving A-plus class monster. Numbers appear. Attack power, 9,400. Rated. Actual, 7,100. He has a fracture in the 3rd segment of his spine, chronic, sustained years ago. He lives with it. He compensates. But with every attack, the fracture reduces the transfer of power from the body to the limbs by 24%. 9,400 minus 24% equals 7,100. Daniel turns to Hana. He says that the listed attack power of 9,400 is the nominal value. The actual power is 7,100. He has a fracture in the 3rd segment of his spine. He can see it from here. He says, "Follow me." He'll tell her where. Hana looks at him, at his work apron, at the measuring rod in his hands, and in her eyes, the same thing happens that happened in the eyes of every person Daniel has ever measured. Understanding. She takes a step forward. The devourer rises. Daniel raises the rod, and the rod begins to glow. The ruler glows. Every number Daniel has accumulated over the past year and a half appears on the steel as white fire. Every plus 0.1 for a sharpened knife. Every plus 0.3 for a honed sword. Every plus 0.5 for a perfectly fitted breastplate. Each plus 2.0 for a potion brewed from expired scraps. 1,000 actions, 1,000 measurements, 1,000 nights in the basement. It's all here, on this steel rod. A line he's never seen before appears before his eyes. Daniel Ray. Class, calibrator. Level, undetermined. Parameter, unique. Accuracy, 9,999 out of 9,999. The system has updated his class. The observer has become a calibrator. Not because he's become stronger, because he's accumulated enough data for the system to recognize him for who he's been from the very beginning. Not a fighter, not a mage, not a master, a calibrator. A person who measures the world and tells it the truth about himself. The devourer attacks. 6 eyes lock onto Daniel as their target. The right paw rises. A downward swing. Force 7,100. Strike speed 3.8 meters per second. Time to contact 1.2 seconds. Daniel counts aloud. He tells Hana. Right paw strike. Force 7,100. Speed 3.8. Step 2 steps to the left. Strike the elbow joint from below on the count of 3. Hana moves, without thinking, without hesitation. 2 steps to the left. 1, 2, 3. Holy slash. The blade pierces the devourer's elbow joint. The creature roars. Its right paw drops, immobilized. Daniel is already counting down the next attack. Tail, 180-degree turn. Speed, 5.1 meters per second. Radius of impact, 8 meters. Time, 0.9 seconds. He shouts to Hana. Tail, jump, now. Hana jumps. The tail passes beneath her. The stone floor cracks from the impact. Hana lands. Daniel continues. 3rd spinal segment. Crack. Strike from above. Angle. 52 degrees. You have 4 seconds now before it turns around. Hana runs. Across the devourer's back. Her feet find purchase on the bony plates. She counts the segments. 1st, 2nd, 3rd. She swings. 52 degrees. Impact. The holy cut glows white. The blade enters a crack that no one but Daniel can see. The devourer shudders from head to toe. The crack widens. The connection between the front and rear of its body is severed. Its hind legs give way. Daniel sees it. He analyzes the situation in real time. The spine's strength has dropped from 4,200 to 1,100. Critical damage. One more strike to the same spot, and the creature will split in 2. He tells Hana. One more time. Same spot, same angle. Hana strikes. second holy cut. The spine snaps. The devourer falls. The front half of its body, with its head and 6 eyes, separates from the back. The creature roars. Its paws scrape against the stone. Its eyes dart about. But it can no longer attack at full strength. Its body is broken. Daniel gives the final command. Lena, arrow, the second eye on the left. Now. The sound of a bowstring snaps from behind the column. Lena shoots. Daniel's shoulder guard rests on her shoulder. A copper thread runs through the bowstring. The arrow flies. It hits the second eye on the left, right in the center of the pupil. The eye is the connection point between the devourer's nervous system and its magical core. Daniel saw this through analysis. Each eye is a channel. The second one on the left is the thickest channel. The arrow pierces it. The connection between the brain and the core is severed. The devourer freezes. 6 eyes go dark, one after another. The body slumps. The core rolls out from the center of mass, the size of a fist, bright red, pulsating. The hall falls silent. Daniel lowers the rod. It stops glowing. He stands in the middle of the hall. A work apron, a steel rod, strength 12, and silence. Hana stands on the back of the dead devourer, a standard sword in her hand, a standard breastplate on her chest. She looks at Daniel. Then she jumps down, walks toward him, takes his face in both hands. Her hands are covered in the monster's blood. She doesn't care. She says one word, his name, Dan. He looks at her, says her pulse is 140, that she needs to sit down. Hana laughs through her tears and says she hates it when he does that. Evan Holt is sitting against the wall. His right arm hangs limply. The shards of his sword lie nearby. He looks at Daniel. He says nothing. Then he says quietly that he was wrong, that the 1% he didn't account for turned out to be decisive. Daniel turns to him. He says that the sword broke exactly where he'd warned it would, that if Evan had listened and replaced the sword before the raid, the fight would have ended in the 6th chamber instead of the 13th, that Boris wouldn't have been wounded, that the team wouldn't have spent 5 days in the dungeon. Evan is silent. His face shows neither anger nor resentment, only exhaustion, and something resembling shame, not for losing the fight, but for losing to arithmetic, to his own arithmetic, which told him that 1% wasn't worth paying attention to. And a person with a strength of 12 had just proven that 1% is everything. Sora is healing Boris. Her hands glow. She channels mana according to the morning routine Daniel showed her. The efficiency is 8% higher. Boris's breathing evens out. Theo lowers his barrier. His mana is at 0. He sits down on the floor and closes his eyes. Lena approaches Daniel. She stands beside him. She's silent. Then she says the arrow hit the mark perfectly, that she's never shot like that in her life, that his bowstring is the best thing that's ever happened to her bow. Daniel says the bowstring had nothing to do with it, that she was the one who hit the mark. Lena shakes her head. She says he's lying, that she hit the mark because he told her where to aim, because he saw a weak spot that no one else could see, because he stood in the hall with an A-plus class boss wearing a work apron and calculated in his head faster than the monster could swing its claws. She falls silent. Then she quietly adds that Hana is lucky to have a husband like him, that she hates to admit it, but that it's true. Daniel doesn't answer. He looks at the devourer's core, red, pulsating. He activates analysis. 5 seconds. Numbers. And among the numbers, a line he didn't expect. Devourer core A+. Energy capacity 14,200. Stability 99.7%. And a mark the system places on certain cores, compatible with the bottomless rift, the access key. Daniel looks at the core, then at Hana, then at the rod in his hand. The bottomless rift, the system's tablet, the one who installed it, the next step. He picks up the core, puts it in the pocket of his work apron, and says it's time for them to go home. 2 years and 3 months since his awakening, Daniel Ray stands before the entrance to the bottomless rift, a massive crater in the rock beneath Calderon's central square. The edges are melted, the stone around it is black. The air shimmers with a concentration of mana rising from the depths like heat from a red-hot furnace. This rift has not closed for 200 years, not since the day the tablet of the system appeared in the world of Aaron. 6 people stand beside him. Hana, rank S, officially assigned 3 months ago. The first female swordswoman with an S rank in the history of the Kingdom of Hansen. Class, Lightblade. Strength, 189. Agility, 214. Her growth over the past 2 years has broken all the guild's records. No one understands why. Daniel understands. Potential, 94. And equipment tailored to the 100th of a unit. Lena, rank A, an archer with full range of fire. Her right shoulder no longer hurts. Daniel's 6th-generation shoulder guard has become part of her body. She wears it constantly, even at home. Sora, rank A, a healer who understands her spells as formulas rather than magic. Her healing efficiency is 31% higher than the average for healers of her level. Because she knows about the daily mana cycle, absorption intervals, and 100 other things Daniel taught her. Iris, blacksmith. Not an adventurer, but she's here because Daniel asked her to. Because in the Bottomless Rift, they might need someone who understands metal with her hands, not just with numbers. Her hammer is on her back. Her steel is in every item the team carries. May, analyst. Not a fighter either, but her system scan can read magical seals and locks. If the tablet is protected by a code, May will try to crack it. If not, Daniel will try. And Yuna, 18 years old, apprentice. Daniel's apprentice. She carries a bag of tools behind him. Files, scales, spare blanks, notebooks. Yuna isn't supposed to be here. Daniel didn't want to take her along, but she'd been standing at his door since 6 in the morning and said that if he didn't take her, she'd go on her own. He looked at her. He saw in her eyes what he saw in the mirror every morning, stubbornness. So he took her. Evan Holt isn't with them. After the raid on the Devourer, he stepped down as captain, not publicly, quietly. He came to Daniel's house. He placed the shards of his sword on the table. He said Daniel was right, about the crack, about the math, about everything. Then he asked if Daniel could make him a new sword. Daniel looked at the shards. He examined them. Then he said he could, but not from this steel, from Iris steel. Evan nodded. He left. He returned a week later for the new sword. Quality 98.4. The finest weapon ever made in the kingdom of Hansen. Evan took it. He stood there for a long time. Then he said he didn't deserve this sword. Daniel replied that a sword is neither a punishment nor a reward. A sword is a tool. A tool deserves to be used properly. Evan left. He's no longer an enemy, but not yet a friend. There's too much between them. But Daniel's sword hangs at his belt, and that's a start. Daniel pulls the Devourer's core out of his pocket, red, pulsating. He holds it up to the edge of the funnel. The core begins to glow brighter. The funnel responds. The black stone around the edges is covered with lines of light, symbols, equations, code. Daniel looks at them, analyzes them, and realizes this isn't magic. It's a language, a technical language, specifications, parameters, tolerances. Someone 200 years ago wrote an operating manual and carved it into the stone at the entrance. Daniel reads, not every word, but enough. Test site number 7, a model of social resource distribution under artificial scarcity. Service life, unlimited. Maintenance, upon request. He descends. The team follows him. A staircase of black stone leads downward. The steps are even, perfectly even. Deviation from the horizontal is less than 0.01 degrees. Daniel checks each step with a straight edge, out of habit. The descent takes an hour. No monsters, no traps. The Bottomless Rift is not a dungeon. It's a corridor leading to the machine. At the end of the corridor is a hall, small, 10 by 10 meters. The ceiling is low. In the center stands a pillar made of a material Daniel cannot identify. Not stone, not metal, not wood, not crystal. His analysis returns a result he's never seen before. Material unknown. Parameters off the scale. This is the tablet of the system, not a plaque, not a stone from the sky. A pillar, smooth, warm to the touch, with a surface across which symbols race. The same ones as at the entrance, but faster. Daniel approaches. He places his palm on the surface. The symbols slow down. They stop. And a voice comes from the pillar. Not divine, not demonic. Tired. Mechanical. Like the voice of an answering machine at a factory after the 6th shift. The voice says that contact with an operator has been established. The voice asks for an access number. Daniel is silent for a second. Then he says he doesn't have an access number, that he isn't an operator, that he's a user. The voice is silent. Then it says that users do not have access to the service terminal. Daniel says he understands, but he has a question. The voice says it's not authorized to answer users' questions. Daniel says that the tablet is undergoing a calibration scan, that it's spreading in a spiral from the central node, that if it isn't stopped, in 2 years it will reach the perimeter of the test site and affect all connected systems. The voice is silent for a long time. Then it asks how the user knows about the calibration scan. Daniel says he's an engineer. He recognized the spiral, a standard diagnostic pattern, expanding from the center in 12.4 kilometer increments. The voice is silent even longer. Then it says the user is correct, that the scan was launched automatically after the system detected an anomaly in Sector 7. An anomaly, an object that does not match the test site's initial parameters, an object with an external code. Daniel asks what kind of object. The voice replies, the object has been identified as user Daniel Ray, origin code external reality, status not provided for in the project documentation. The system detected him and initiated diagnostics to verify whether the facility had been damaged by his presence. Daniel stands with his hand on a pillar. Behind him, 6 people stand in silence. Hana, Lena, Sora, Iris, May, and Yuna. Everyone hears him. Daniel says that the facility is undamaged, that he can confirm this, that he has measured 340 system parameters over the past year and a half, and not a single one has shown any degradation, that the system is operating normally, that the mutations are caused not by damage, but by the scan itself. The voice processes the information, then it confirms it. It says that the calibration scan can be stopped if an operator or an authorized technician confirms the system's integrity. Daniel asks if he can be authorized as a technician. The voice says that to be authorized as a technician, one must demonstrate knowledge of 3 fundamental system parameters accurate to the 3rd decimal place. Daniel doesn't hesitate. He states the first parameter, the characteristic rounding coefficient, 0.497, not 0.5 as everyone thinks, 0.497. The system doesn't round mathematically. It slightly underestimates, constantly, in all calculations. This is a built-in shift, intentional, so that users are always slightly weaker than they think, to ensure the system has a safety margin in case of overload. The voice confirms it. The first parameter is correct. Daniel states the second, the period of the daily mana cycle, 23 hours, 47 minutes, and 12.3 seconds, not 24 hours. Mana regenerates faster than a day. The cycle gradually shifts. In 82 days, the mana peak will occur at midnight. In 164 days, at noon. Not a single mage in Arena has noticed this in 200 years. Daniel noticed because Sora kept a diary for 3 months, and he knows how to read the data. The voice confirms. The second parameter is correct. Daniel says the third one. The service life of the Lightblade class, 12 years. After 12 years of active use, the class degrades. Parameters decline. Skills lose their power. The class's bearer slowly returns to the state they were in before awakening. This isn't a disease, it's a design limitation, built into the system from the start, like an expiration date on a give. Hana is standing behind him. He can feel her shudder. She didn't know. No one knew. The Lightblade class is too rare for anyone has lived past the 12-year mark and noticed the pattern. But Daniel saw a line in her parameters, a hidden line that the system doesn't display. Service life, 12 years. Countdown initiated. The voice confirms. Third parameter is correct. User Daniel Ray is authorized as a Level 4 level technician. Access to basic maintenance functions. Granted. Daniel takes a breath. Then he issues 3 commands. First, stop the calibration scan. Test site in normal mode. Diagnostics complete. The voice confirms. Scan stopped. Mutations will cease within 72 hours. Second, provide a complete list of design constraints built into the system. Class service life. Hidden coefficients. Mandatory compromises. That's all. The voice is silent. Then it says that the information is available to Level 4 technicians in the form of a text report. Volume, 74,000 pages. Daniel nods. He says he'll read it. Third request. Is it possible to change the service life of the Brightblade class for a specific user, from 12 years to unlimited? The voice is silent longer than it was for all previous answers. Then it says that changing a design parameter for a single user is possible, provided that the technician provides a compensatory resource equivalent to the energy cost of the modification. Daniel asks what kind of resource. The voice replies, the accuracy metric. Current value, 9,999. Required expenditure, 5,000. Remaining value after the operation, 4,999. Daniel doesn't hesitate for a second. He says yes. He confirms. The pillar hums. The surface heats up. Symbols flicker. Something is changing in the structure of the world. One line in a single file. The service life of the Lightblade class for user Hana Yoon. It was 12 years. It is now unlimited. Daniel removes his hand from the pillar. He turns around. Hana is standing in front of him. Her eyes are wet. She heard every word. She knows that he has just given up half of what he had, half of his only parameter, the only number in which he was perfect. 9,999 out of 9,999 became 4,999 out of 9,999. He became half as strong in the one thing he was good at, for her sake. Hana opens her mouth. She wants to say he shouldn't have, that she didn't ask for it, that it's too much. Daniel says she isn't worth it. Hana freezes. He says she's worth more, that 5,000 is the best deal he's ever made, that if the price had been 9,999 out of 9,999, he would have paid it without a second thought, because he's an engineer, and he knows the value of things. Hana takes a step forward. She hugs him, tightly, so tightly that her strength of 189 nearly breaks his ribs. His endurance is 16. He endures it. Lena stands by the wall and turns away. She rubs her eyes. She says there's dust in the room. Sora cries openly, without restraint. Her notebook is pressed against her chest. Iris stands silently. Her face is calm, but her hand on the hammer's handle has turned white from the grip. May takes off her glasses, wipes them, puts them back on, takes them off again. Yuna sits on a step, hugging her tool bag. Her chin trembles. Daniel stands in his wife's arms in the middle of the hall beneath the capital of the Kingdom of Hansen. His bar has gone dark. His accuracy has dropped by half. His stats are still pitiful. Strength 12, dexterity 14, mana 0. But in his pocket is the key to the bottomless rift. In his head are 74,000 pages he has yet to read. In his hands are his tools. A notebook awaits him on his table in the basement. Aaron's Permissions, Volume 1. He'll start the second volume tomorrow. But for now, he's leading his team home. They climb the steps, black stone, lines of symbols. The air grows warmer with every step. Light lies ahead, Aaron's sun. Daniel steps out last. He squints. Calderon Square is bathed in light. People go about their business. The lanterns on the monster's cores burn steadily. The world carries on. Nothing has changed for those above. Everything has changed for those who came down. Hana takes his hand. Her palm is warm and firm, just like that first day on the temple floor when the priest read his pitiful numbers and she squeezed his fingers and said everything would be all right. He squeezes back 3 times. Hana smiles. They walk home. On the way, Daniel looks at a streetlight. A habit. Analysis activates. Class F core. Residual charge 41%. Activation speed 4.2 seconds. Slower than before. Its accuracy has dropped. 4,999 instead of 9,999. He notices the difference. Before, the data appeared instantly. Now it's a little slower, a half-second delay. He accepts it. That's the price. And he knows the value of things. They arrive home, a small apartment above the artisan quarter. 1 bed, 1 table, 1 chair. A window facing the wall of the neighboring building, and a door to the basement where notebooks sit on a shelf. Hana's equipment, Lena's equipment, Sora's formulas, Iris's measurements, Aaron's tolerances, Volume 1. Daniel pours Hana some tea. She sits down at the table, tired, happy, alive. He sits across from her, picks up a notebook, opens a blank page. He writes the title, Aaron's Tolerances, Volume 2. First line, Tablet of the System, Material unknown, further research required. Hana reaches across the table. She covers his hand with hers. He doesn't look up. He keeps writing, but his fingers press 3 times beneath her palm, quietly, as usual, as always. I love you. Outside the window, Calderon goes about its business. The streetlights are on, the dungeons await, the system is running. And in a small basement in the artisan's quarter, the man with the lowest stats in the kingdom opens a new notebook, because he has 74,000 pages ahead of him, and a whole lifetime to read them. And a woman by his side who will now live as long as he does. And that's all he needs, period.